Hmm? Ah! Oh.
Faith, we need to talk about what we're gonna do.
It's nothing to talk about. I was doing my job.
Being a slayer is not the same as being a killer. Faith, please don't shut me out here. Like, sooner or later, we're both gonna have to deal.
Wrong.
We can help each other.
I don't need it.
Yeah? Who's wrong now? Faith, you can shut off all the emotions that you want, but eventually they're gonna find a body.
Okay, this is the last time we're gonna have this conversation, and we're not even having it now. You understand me? There is no body. I took it, weighted it, and dumped it. Body doesn't exist.
Getting rid of the evidence doesn't make the problem go away.
It does for me.
Faith, you don't get it. You killed a man.
No, you don't get it. I don't care.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Still Slaying, a Buffyverse podcast. I'm Bad Girl Penny.
I can't. I love it.
I know, I lost it too.
Surprise!
And I'm sorry. And I'm Bad Girl Sam.
I can't. And I'm Kara. I can't do it and get through a
And
sentence.
she's Will.
Oh, God. This episode, we're going to be discussing Season 3, Episode 14, Bad Girls, directed by Michael Lang. That is the least seductive way I could ever think of saying Bad Girls.
Yeah.
Bad Girls, directed by Michael Lang and written by Douglas Petrie. The original air date was February 9th, 1999.
We, again, looked into some of the alternative titles that were used in other countries, and the best ones were Poland, again, with the win, Because These Girls Were Bad,
I love it.
German, The New Watcher, and also German, Balthazar. Why are there two
Oh,
Germans?
sorry. That's supposed to say Italian for Balthazar.
Okay, so that third one was Italian. Got it.
Yep. Good job,
Well,
Pascara.
as you have heard, Sam is back with us. Sam, you were on before for Gingerbread, and we talked about
Woohoo!
book burning and witch hunts and stuff. Welcome back to the podcast. We're excited to hear your take on Bad Girls.
Oh, well, thank you so much. Thank you for having me back. You guys gave me the opportunity to come in, and I didn't scare everyone
Not
off.
at
So
all.
I'm very excited.
No,
to
we're
be
delighted
back.
to have you back. And this is going to be a fun episode to talk
Oh.
about. There's just so much going on. Let's go back to February 1999.
Okay, so first talking about the number one song in the United States, it was Angel of Mine by Monica. I remember that one. I think I played that a lot. And then the number one song in the UK was Maria by Blondie.
Best-selling books include Southern Cross by Patricia Cornwell, fiction, and The Greatest Generation by Tom Brokaw, nonfiction. U.S. box office, number one movie was Saving Private Ryan. Number 2, Patch Adams, followed by number 3, Stepmom.
Yeah,
All
I
traumatic
accidentally
movies.
That's a cry
went
fest right there.
into the theater for Saving Private Ryan instead of Stepmom with one of my friends. And the first couple of minutes, I was just like, wait a second, what did we do? This is not right. So that was fun. I did not actually watch Saving Private Ryan in full until 5 years ago, because I did not think I could
especially the
handle it.
beginning.
Yeah, great time.
That scene, I watched it too young. My parents should have taken me out of the theater. That scene in the movie where the guy has the knife over one of the U.S. soldiers' chest and just slowly
Oh,
just
when he's like face to face with him.
inserts it into his
Awful.
chest. Yeah, that
It's just
lives
so
rent-free in my
brutal.
head still.
The one
Oh,
thing about that
gut-wrenching.
movie, and I agree that it was a masterpiece, but I did not need to see that opening series of scenes with the storming of the beach.
Nope.
But whenever it is in the movie that they get to the part where Ted Danson is in it,
Yeah.
it completely broke the movie for me. I was like, Ted Danson
Yeah.
from Cheers. Like and for the rest of the movie, everybody was their actor name and not their character name.
Yeah.
Like it just took me right out of it.
Certain actors being
It's kind of like Ed Sheeran
right.
in Game of
Certain
Thrones.
actors being in period pieces just does not work. They're too well known, too associated with a character. It's just like, yep.
They look too modern.
Oh goodness.
Sometimes it just doesn't. Yeah,
absolutely.
it doesn't work. Also going on the week of February 7th, 1999, Crown Prince Abdullah became King of Jordan after the death of his father. On the 11th, Pluto regains its status as the solar system's outermost planet after moving further away from the sun than Neptune. Spoiler alert, Pluto will be demoted from planet status in 2006.
Poor Pluto.
Pluto is like the ex you break up with, and then you just keep going back. You're like, come on, come on, come on. It's like, okay.
No,
go back again.
No. On February 12th,
Pluto.
President Bill Clinton was acquitted by the U.S. Senate in the impeachment trial that we've been talking about. And on the 14th, Jeff Gordon wins the 41st Daytona 500. He was the first pole sitter to win the race since Bill Elliott in 1987. Do either of you know what a pole sitter is? I meant to look it up and I didn't get to it.
It's like the number one seed, essentially. The person who's in the number one spot going into the race.
That is not what my mind thought it was. I thought we would have to find it on Pornhub or something.
Yeah, it definitely sounds a little dirty.
I almost typed that in as just an FYI for I was like, there are probably people that don't know what pole sitter actually means.
Yes. Make sure your Google search is insane.
Oh God.
Seriously.
Yeah. That'd be bad. That'd be real
Well,
bad.
speaking of adult topics, let's get into the episode entitled Bad Girls, which really,
fun.
With a 2024 ear, you expect to see a lot more hedonism than we actually get. It's actually a little bit safe now looking back on it through a 90s lens.
True.
But
well, I guess the bad part might be
pretty entertaining.
The murdery aspect of it.
Yeah. But I mean, I think the title very much refers to how much fun Buffy and Faith were having right up until
like
that point.
Dancing in the bronze with each other. It's like,
so
no.
Yes. So risque.
Yes, absolutely.
So
definitely some flirty Faith Buffy vibes going
true.
on this
no
episode.
one
calls her girlfriend.
Yeah. Everybody was like, the subtext, subtext. And I was like, not in this one. This one's just pretty much like,
the text.
Yep, the text. Oh, gosh.
This one's text.
So, Sam, as our guest of honor, you get to pick where we start the discussion.
Okay, well, I think one of the things that came up for me, definitely as a psychologist, was Faith's PTSD.
Yeah. Let's talk about it.
That was front and foremost in the episode in there. I found looking at her character through this lens, there was so much that reminded me of someone who has PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, and hasn't done any processing of it. There's similar themes that I sort of picked up and maybe put on to Faith based on how she was acting, that just reminded me of someone who's been through developmental trauma, and has gone on to enter into a world as a slayer where she gets to live in the trauma. She doesn't have as much of an escape. And not only does she have to live through traumatic events like slaying, she feels empowered in those moments. So that's where she feels the most alive, the most in charge. And it was interesting to see her essentially pull Buffy into a place of trauma. And I thought that the timing of the episode where Buffy and Faith were not synchronized. I mean, they were doing their synchronized slaying in the
Yeah.
beginning. And then, we see Faith being impulsive. Impulsivity is a part of PTSD and trauma processing. You have that just sort of, you cannot sit with staying and planning the way Buffy typically does. You see her just jump, and she makes some quippy stuff about it, but she is being reckless with her life, which is also a factor of unprocessed PTSD, because the adrenaline, the chaos feels familiar.
Right.
So this is where she feels the most familiar, the most comfortable, the most alive. It's the quiet moments, even in this episode, where we see her look vulnerable and lost because she has to sit with feelings she's been running from. I think Faith most likely raised herself.
Yeah, that's the sense I've always gotten.
She was
that she had a single mother, and who did her best, but really wasn't available. And do we learn at some point that Faith's mother died when Faith was a teenager? I think we do.
I don't remember.
Like, even that source of stability left her.
Yeah.
I think, like, cancer or something.
Yeah,
because
it might not come up for a couple
it's
seasons.
always juxtaposed with Buffy's relationship with Joyce. So I don't know if I just assumed that her mother had passed away, because the absence of a father figure, that's pretty acknowledged and clear. But I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's interesting because the way she navigates figures, authority figures, it leads me to think that she's used to being her own authority figure, not being deferential to authority figures like Giles and Joyce, and we see her introduction to Wesley. I think that really mapped on to her developmental trauma, where Buffy, who has had a loving, supportive mom and a father figure in Giles, is willing to play along with this new person that she doesn't trust as a form of respect to Giles, almost. Because, she sits next to Giles. She's like, okay, you're sitting here and talking to him. I guess I'll take him in. And then Faith, she comes in and just like, new watcher. They confirm it. She's like, forget that, and just walks out. She shows very little respect and tolerance for this new authority figure, which makes sense if, she doesn't care that he's an adult with power because she's been let down by them before. Maybe her mom, maybe her dad, Gwendolyn Post.
Gwendolyn Post is probably very fresh on her mind, because she did seem to actually be excited about Gwendolyn, and had seemed eager to bond with her, and clearly had trusted her. I'll never forget the look on her face once she realizes that, Gwendolyn is not at all who we thought she was. And she just, one after another, she's let down, which is why when the mayor ultimately comes in, she's so susceptible to that.
Yes, yeah. And we see, like, even that watcher that she had prior to her introduction in the series, she talks about how that watcher was murdered by the vampire baddie of the week, and like she wouldn't even talk about it. So like, here's someone who she finally connected to, an authority figure, who's then murdered, so in a way also let her down, even though it's not on purpose. And so maybe that bond allowed her to bond with Gwendolyn.
Even if you don't want to defer to an authority figure, if you're in Faith's situation where she is her own boss and has been her whole life, she's had to parent herself, I agree with that. She also, it's not just about like, will this authority figure be good at being an authority, but also like, am I responsible to care about this person? And if I care about them and they die, like, I don't want to go through that again. So it's better to just reject everything.
Exactly. And
it's that abandonment.
It's part of
coming
her
into
romantic relationships too, right? She's like, I treat men like, disposable whatever, because I don't want to get attached to anyone. The only person she has like the tiniest bit of attachment to is Buffy, because in Buffy she sees like a sort of skewed mirror image. They are skewed mirror images of each other, and also somebody that can survive, like is strong enough to live in Faith's world. And so she doesn't think she would have to lose Buffy the way she thinks everybody else is probably going to die if they don't get
Absolutely.
attached.
It's such a great point. There's someone who can defend herself, who is strong. And when the reason I think it sort of stuck out to me about Faith's developmental trauma is when we're kids, we learn to value ourselves as people, as who we are, not what we can do for others or how we, give back to this world. We learn self-worth and self-esteem from our parents or whoever raises us, and the school system around us and our friends when we're kids. That's really where we learn that we're worth something just as we are. And we see, like, at least in this episode, Buffy is cautious. She's like, I don't want to just jump into that manhole. Like, even before then, she was like, let's do it on the count of three. Let's be cautious. And Faith even says, you think too much. We see Buffy being cautious and valuing herself and her safety, where Faith is just throwing it all to the wind. She doesn't think she's worthy to work on her fears in order to create these bonds, because she's like, not only will I have to mourn them, but then, like, who am I after they're gone? You're okay. Even when these people leave you, you're still going to be okay. She had never developed that. And we see that sort of coming on later, in her storylines of you are enough as you are, and you are with you. So it's an interesting thing to sort of see that play out. And with her, I don't think it's a coincidence that Buffy joins in Faith's almost destructive train of fighting after almost drowning. Again, Buffy's own trauma back
Right.
from Prophecy
Yeah,
Girl.
Buffy
That's when
and
she
Faith
switches.
definitely both have dealt with PTSD. And I understand in fictional works that it's often ignored or just not mentioned in terms of trauma. But there is something about Buffy in particular, the way that they treat women and trauma in this show compared to the men. It drives me crazy because it's always tied to their character or their strength and lessons learned. And that is one trope that I've seen, you see over and over again in fiction that women especially seem to have to deal with. And it's similar to, Sansa's character in Game of Thrones. Spoiler alert if you haven't seen that by now. Her situation being married to Ramsay and the sexual assault that she deals with. People talk about the strength that she has after that. And I was like, but why did she have to go through this
she
horrible
was strong
trauma
when she watched her father
It's
die.
one area of Buffy.
She didn't need to have
Yeah.
that.
But it's such a trope, and it's one of the things that Game of Thrones really got lambasted for in sort of fan discourse, was that, it's been a trope for so long that a woman gets assaulted sexually, and that forms the basis of her strength in the future. And it paints this weird picture of sexual assault being somehow good for you or teaching you some kind of lessons and making you stronger. And so many female characters have to go through a rape before they get to be strong. What I've always liked about Buffy is that is not part of her story. That's not part of Faith's story.
Yeah.
Faith's trauma does seem to be primarily developmental and like losing people, abandonment issues. And then I think she acts a little bit like an addict when it comes to fighting. That when she's fighting, like you said, it's where she feels comfortable and empowered, because there's all this action, there's all this, drama going on, everything is up in the air, and she is the most powerful person there, and she can lose herself in the physical act of fighting. But we've also seen that she is not a strategic fighter. She is a power fighter, because she doesn't slow down even. I mean, 1, 2, 3, like Buffy said, is not a plan. It's Sesame Street. So, but Faith is like, I can't be still for even a moment. And I have spent time with addicts who are like, they will readily tell you, like, yeah, when I'm drinking or when I'm using, I feel out of control and sick, and it's always horrible, and afterward I feel like garbage and I hate myself. And the second that they can use again, they do, because it's the only place where they feel like they know what's happening.
It becomes familiar, and it's avoidance at the key of it. Like when you work with people with addictions, like I think it's fair to say that Faith is addicted to slaying. She has a lot of the traits of that where it's not thoughtful and planned out like Buffy's is. It's impulsive, it's reckless compared to Buffy.
Well, she follows it up so frequently by, that talk of, don't you ever, get horny after slaying? And the way she plays it up with Buffy, she jumps from like one impulse and
Yes.
distraction to another.
Exactly. And it's like,
And
and it's the
Yeah.
physical. It's the
Buffy,
physical of it. If you're in your body,
hmm
you're not in your head. And we see she's not even in her head when she fights. She's not planning it
mm-mm,
out. And then she's not in her head when she's with the guys that she hooks up with. Because she's like, I mean, it's totally cool to be like use and lose if that's, the agreement. That doesn't seem to be what she's doing. It seems to be like I need another way to be in my body so I'm not in my head. And that's avoidance.
hmm
Like we see these such quiet moments.
Yeah. It's a
Yeah.
numbing
So it's
thing.
like when you treat substance abuse or any sort of addiction, you have to treat why you're using. So it's like it's not just the addiction, it's what you're avoiding with the addiction. So it makes sense like with the people you've known of like they get fidgety as well when, getting ready to use, and that's why people will go to extreme lengths to use, or in Faith's case, really dangerous on top of already a dangerous job of like
Yeah.
jumping in. And it's like, yeah, she'll do anything not to feel what's lurking in the back of her head, because that's what trauma is. You process it now or later, but it's not going away. And we see this.
Yeah. Yeah. Trauma doesn't just
Yeah,
take
yeah,
care of
no, it
itself.
it
No matter how deep down
oh
you
yeah,
shove it.
it'll come back. I wish for so many of my patients and myself that we could just bury it enough and not feel it. And that's not how it works. It's either now or later.
Mhm.
And we see how Buffy experiences what I would definitely term as a new trauma when another vampire tries to drown her after she died in
Mhm.
Prophecy Girl.
Yeah.
And I know it's made to be lighthearted and quippy and everything, and then the next
Yeah, what
day,
does she say? I hate it when they try to drown me
yeah.
or something
And
like
then you
that.
see her like
Yeah.
It's
fighting and
like,
she's in it. But what's interesting is the next day, or I guess it's the next day, she's updating them on the amulet. And then she goes into class. Remember, Buffy talked about this chemistry class being so important so that she can work on her
mhm.
future. What does she do? She's not paying attention to the teacher. She's distracted. She's fixating on the event where she felt empowered with Faith. And to the point where like Willow and Xander are like, you need to concentrate. She is no longer in there in their environment.
Yep.
She's in her trauma and her empowerment in it. And she says, she's like, you wouldn't get it. It's a Slayer thing, which is an excuse that people with trauma use of like, no one else would understand it but
Mhm.
me. So you use that to distance yourself out from the people around you and to be more inward focused, or as an addiction with
That scene
other
makes
with
Yeah.
me incredibly anxious every
yes.
single time
It
I watch it.
is.
I'm just like, how are
I
you doing
I
this? It's like, you have a test,
I
Buffy.
know. I know. I was watching. I was like, "Oh my god, this is a trauma response." She's
Yep.
distracted. She's no longer
Yeah.
forward
Being
thinking.
reckless and
Yeah, the
impulsive.
important things are no longer important to her the way they were before. Faith comes and offers her an out, like, "Come with me to be empowered and avoid this
Mhm.
stuff and the feelings you're feeling." And she's like, "Yeah," and just leaves. And it's like, yeah,
Ugh.
And is this what is called
yes,
trauma bonding? I've
Ye-
been seeing that
Mm.
phrase
yes.
around all over
People
the place, and
misuse it a lot too.
I don't understand what it is. So, Sam, can you explain
Mhm.
what that term is
Yeah.
supposed to mean?
Yeah.
Because I've seen like 4 or 5 different.
Yes, yes. Trauma bonding is when one or more individuals experience a traumatic event together at the same time and they start to share in those experiences. However, it becomes toxic and unhealthy because all you are socializing is with each other and you're not working on healing and processing and moving forward. You want to stay in the trauma because the only thing that bonds you and the other person is the trauma that you two experience. So rather than processing and healing and moving forward, you stay in the trauma. That's kind of a generalization of like what it is supposed to mean. I find that people don't necessarily know what a trauma is, and to be fair, like I don't think in therapy I've ever told someone like their stuff isn't a trauma. With social media and TikTok being so big, I have had to step out of that comfort zone and be like, okay, what you went
Mm-hmm.
through was immensely upsetting, not a traumatic event.
Yeah.
So
Not
like,
a traumatic
and not
event.
every traumatic event creates a trauma disorder. It's actually very rare. Like we will
Right.
still remember it and stuff, but it's rare that you go on to develop a trauma disorder. And so it is something where people like you work together in a negative place. And you're like, oh, we're trauma bonded. It's like that's not the same thing. That's like
Yeah.
I have heard that as a joke in my old workplace so much, and I was just like, you guys, I get it if you're being funny, but I
yeah,
was like, this is not at all what that means.
not, yeah.
Like,
There is a thing that happens if you work with somebody in a toxic environment where you come out of it
Yes.
bonded
I-
from the
yes.
toxicity and the
Yes.
experience of going through it and
Yes.
supporting each other through
There's
it.
a bond there.
Yes, there's a
For it to rise to the level of trauma, I feel like
Mhm.
the abuse would have to become extreme, like
Yeah.
actionable, like
Yeah,
sexual harassment
pretty
or
intense.
And it would
physical
exactly,
abuse or
and
something like that.
hopefully what brought the two of you together isn't the only thing that brings you together. You continue to bring other aspects of your life in, good or bad, and or anything in between. And hopefully you leave the toxic environment. You're still friendly and friends and shared a part of your life together and bringing in other aspects of life. So I've definitely had that before where I have a bunch of friends where we trained in kind of toxic places, and that wasn't the only thing that made us friendly. We supported each other, and then we are going on now to being in different spaces and still really close and talking about families and negative stuff too. That's not necessarily a trauma bond. It's a bond that formed with wanting to support each other. So yeah, more like a trauma bond's more like a
What about
part.
when you meet
Sorry.
someone? What about when you meet someone and find out that your histories are similar and that you have similar traumas as each other?
It's tricky. It's tricky. I would say like people who had similar traumas in the same cult, that would be very much a trauma bond. You experienced it, even if it wasn't at the exact same time. This was the same perpetrator. This was the same cultural mentality. That could lead to trauma bonding. I think what happens, and I guess you could use it for someone like both of you had, like both people had abuse in their childhood. I don't know if I would call it a trauma bond because you weren't with each other when the trauma happened. What makes that
As
so
opposed to just
unhealthy is that that's how you connect and
bonding.
stay there, is in the pain of the past. And it doesn't just create an understanding of empathy and connection, it's all that you stay at. So it is a way that I wouldn't, for me, like I wouldn't call it necessarily a trauma bond. I would say the two of you connect over past traumas and want to live there, which is also not great. Like that's also like a similar thing. It's good to have compassion, empathy, and frequently those two people can connect in a way that other people will never understand. And it's very intimate and powerful. And the idea is you don't want to live there because the brain loves to go back to upsetting moments in our history and will stay there if we let it. We're just kind of built into doing that through adaptation to stay with the upsetting because that's what helps us to survive as a species. That's adaptation, Darwinism.
Our brains
Yeah.
are so
I know.
mean to
Yeah.
us
I know.
sometimes.
And for Faith, we see like she like anytime, like I was just struck by Eliza Dushku's acting in the quietness. She cannot sit in the quiet. Like she doesn't know what to do with it. We see even at the end of the episode, she's in denial. I mean, that was pure avoidance and denial. She was trying to get the blood out of her shirt. I was like, she learned that a long time ago. That's an old hat trick she's been doing, not just
Yeah.
slang. And I was just struck by
That
everything. And just like, and also like the clothing that they had on too. I don't know if wardrobe did this on purpose. Maybe I'm just reading a little too much into it. Faith was wearing a white top and black pants, so black and white thinking, which is peak trauma thinking. Black and white thinking is trauma mind. And then Buffy is in like this grayish, bluish outfit. It looked like a grayish blue outfit, shades of gray, nuance of, yeah, we didn't
Yeah.
mean to do it. It still happened. We need to sit here and talk about it because Buffy has a great support system. And I think
Yeah.
that death
Yeah.
really rocked her. And, she wanted to keep Faith's secret because it was such a big thing. And she and Faith had been through this experience together. I would say like maybe they were trauma bonded from they were supposed to be the protectors, and they accidentally killed an innocent human in the middle of a battle. The very people, well, they think is an innocent human in the middle of a battle.
Yeah.
They didn't realize, they thought Alan was just someone they were supposed to protect, and they
Well,
killed
he's
him.
innocent in terms of there was no justifiable
Yeah.
reason to kill him.
Yeah.
Like, we know he's working with the mayor,
Yeah.
but morally speaking, legally speaking, they would not have been justified in killing
Yeah.
him. But one thing, it's funny you mention
I mean,
the hmm.
go ahead.
I
Go
was
ahead.
it's funny you mentioned the clothes.
Yeah.
Just as a quick one-off, is if you look at Buffy's clothes throughout
Mhm.
the episode, she's wearing kind of her, those trademarks pastels
Yeah.
at the beginning, and then her clothes kind of darken
Mhm.
as it goes on, and then at the very end, she's again appearing in
Mhm.
those pastels. And the only other thing I wanted to mention as you were talking about it is Faith getting out her clothes. One, it was very much reminiscent of Out Out Damn Spot by Lady Macbeth for any of my fellow Shakespeare nerds. And two, the fact that we have heard Buffy specifically talk to Joyce about how you didn't notice doing my laundry, like getting blood out of my
Yeah.
clothes, and just more of a distinction between Buffy and her support system and her mom that she relies on, whereas Faith, one, probably doesn't have a lot of clothes. She has to try to get spots out so she has things to wear. And it's just, I don't know if that was an intentional callback or
I
reference
think
by them
so.
to Buffy
Yeah.
and
I think
Joyce, but it's
so.
just one of those subtle ones that's just so well done.
There are so many things in Faith's environment that highlight how different her life is from Buffy's. Buffy's house is warm.
Yeah.
Joyce has put effort into the
Yeah.
furniture and the decor. Things kind of go together. There's space. It's very tidy. And Faith lives all in this one room. It's a cheap room. She's washing her shirt in this tiny little
Mhm.
sad sink. And it's I mean, I've lived in a motel for a stretch of time before, and it's demoralizing and
Mhm.
depressing. And whenever they have a scene in Faith's motel room, I'm always like, "Oh God,
Yep.
I wish
Yes.
somebody would like let her live at their
Right?
house or something." It's so lonely to live in
And
like especially
yeah.
a cheap, crappy motel where people are probably coming and going all the
That's
time,
safe.
and
Yeah.
it's
And
gross.
there
It's
is
just
like
Well, and your
gross.
like an
environment
unbonding.
affects
Yeah.
mental state
Yeah.
so much. Like, if I have
Yeah. And it's
clutter,
part of being transient,
Absolutely.
right?
I
hmm
was just thinking that too, of Buffy has a permanent
Faith,
home and friends and family and school as a
stability.
connection. She has roots in the ground of her tree of life, so to speak. And Faith is just this
Yeah.
transient person. So when things spin out of control, she doesn't have those groundings to bring her back. She doesn't have anything to solidify her and pull her down. And we know that Faith's avoidance of dealing with her emotions leads her down a dark, treacherous path where she's also very vulnerable to outside forces.
I think she's deeply,
Oh
deeply
yeah.
angry about the things that have happened to her in
Hmm.
her life.
hmm
And she is telling herself that she doesn't care about those things as much
Hmm.
as she does. And that she's not angry because she gets to have fun and be a
Hmm.
slayer and kill things. And she's got superpowers and she's sexy and all these other things. And nobody's going to tell her what to do. And it makes me so sad
I
whenever I
think,
think
Kara,
about it.
Yeah.
sorry, Penny. I think, Penny, you're picking up on exactly why Faith avoids being angry. Because I absolutely agree. She's furious. We see it when she fights. She is absolutely furious.
Mm.
She's avoiding even owning the anger because anger is a bodyguard emotion. Sometimes it's righteous rebellion and righteous anger of being mistreated. I don't think that's Faith. I think Faith, like you said, is furious with her lot in life and how she's been dealt just one awful hand after another. And if she really sits with that anger, she'll realize what's underneath that anger, which is profound sadness and loneliness and despair and grief of this is the lot she's been given in life. And she knows slayers don't live very long. They have a very short shelf life. So this is the life she gets to have. And it's not going to last very long, because I don't think it's talked about enough in the series. When you become a slayer and you get this calling, these teenage girls are told, you got a very short expiration date now.
Yeah. I mean,
They
like,
treat
we go
them
back a
as
couple of episodes to
Yeah.
Helpless.
Mhm.
And when Giles is telling Buffy about the test, he says it's given to a slayer if, when she reaches her 18th birthday. And it's like, that if
Ugh.
is so painful.
Yeah.
And it does come up in future moments in the series. There will be times when Buffy will raise the fact that she knows that she's got this, dangerous life that probably has a short ending coming. And it's part of why I hate the council so much, is that their attitude towards the slayers is that they are disposable and replaceable, and it's so exploitative and it's so sad, and it's also so typical of the way our world uses young people who have talent
Mhm.
and tries to just use them until they can't use them anymore.
The music
And it's not just
industry.
in entertainment, it's not just in athletics like we've talked about in the past. It's also in like every capitalist system I've ever been in, like every corporation I've been in. It's like, we get the fresh blood and we work them into the ground until they quit, and then we'll get some new fresh blood. And I don't know what it was like going into the prosecution criminal side of the legal practice, Kara, but in the corporate legal side, it was, I mean, they would jokingly refer to us as slaves, minions, peons, plebes. And it was always, there were times when they would be like, I need you to sit in this room and wait for me as long as it takes for me to get here. And it would be like 9 hours of just sitting in a room and you weren't allowed to leave it. And the more senior attorney would be like, that's what it's like.
So I had a
Like,
very
they're just-
different type of toxic work environment where it was, we're family. We're all family
Please run.
here.
If you
that
if
is
you
such
hear we
bull.
are family
Look,
here, everyone run. I am a psychologist telling you, nothing good comes
I'm
from
always
that.
like,
the
that's
job.
That word
It
doesn't
was-
mean what you
It's the
think it means.
so I have
dysfunction.
unpacked that work environment in therapy, but it took me 9 years to finally extract myself from it. But it's true, the way that young people are burned through, especially like you said, in a capitalist society. I can't help but think of this timing of this season. We talked about Britney Spears and her first album and her first single coming out, and I think she and a lot of young female singers and entertainers during that time are perfect examples of that. You hypersexualize them and use them when they're young and then discard them later on.
When they don't know.
And
I tell my trainees, like, psychology, medicine are some of the worst perpetrators of these issues. I tell my trainees, I'm like, no one's going to hold your boundaries for you. Like I will as your supervisor right now. No one's going to hold them for you once you get into a job. They will use you and lose you. Like, they do not care about your life. Like, don't love, what's that saying? Don't love your job, they won't love you back.
There used to be a lot of talk at the law firm about loyalty.
Oh my gosh.
Like, oh, we want you to be loyal. And I'd be like, why?
I
You're not loyal back.
I know.
Like,
Us too. Yeah.
this is a financial
It's a
arrangement
transaction.
only. Like, there's no
You
loyalty
pay me
the
for
other
my
way.
expertise.
Maybe
Like,
one or two people in the hierarchy are loyal, but not the hierarchy itself. It's designed to discard people.
Like, you will replace me in a second.
How fast, when somebody leaves a company that you think is like crucial to the company and like beloved and was responsible for so many things, 3 months. Everybody's like moved on.
Every person in the world is replaceable. I mean, we even have a vice president for our president in the United States. Like
Yeah.
every single person is replaceable. You know who we're not replaceable to? Our friends and family. So yeah, and
And
ourselves,
ourselves.
exactly. That, and like, talk about replaceable. I mean, that's how the Slayer was created to be. And it's just, yeah, the absolute exploitation of girls. They're not even women, they're girls. They're called at what, 13,
Yeah.
14, 15, and no one is protecting them.
Teenage children.
Yeah, like no one is protecting them.
Yeah, and they specifically keep it secret.
From
right?
the
So
parents.
the
Yeah.
ability to abuse this girl is rampant. And Giles is a lovely person, and he really cares about Buffy and her
Yeah.
well-being, but he has sent her into danger time and time again because it's her job, and he believes in the Slayer's mission. And just think about, you would not need a watcher to be very, like, a horrible person to be an abusive
Right.
watcher, right? Like, they have so much power over the Slayer. They hold all the knowledge. They have all of the contact with the council. The Slayer never seems to have direct contact with the council. And their
Yeah.
parents are out of the loop, and it would be so easy for them to exploit the Slayer in other ways,
100%.
sexual ways.
I'm sure it
like,
happened. I mean, these are
Yeah.
little, like, these are girls. These are kids. And when you think about putting these adult, mostly men, with these Slayers, and you say that they are disposable, and that there's going to be another one as soon as they die. I mean, we were just talking about this, my family, this afternoon, of the prevalence of teachers being being a predator for a child in school. And it's like,
Yeah.
there are some wonderful,
And
wonderful
coaches.
teachers who go in there to help people. I have them in my family. And at the same time, these are positions that put them into close contact with vulnerable minors. And you spend a lot of time with them and you gain their trust. That is prime position, unfortunately, to abuse these children. And there needs to be vigilance. And the fact that there isn't one in the council, that I think is on purpose. I
Yeah.
think that that's very telling.
Well, they hide
Oh,
behind
yeah.
the mission, right? They're like, we're saving the world, therefore we don't have to worry about being good people. That's taken
Yeah.
care of because we're saving the world. So everything we do in service of saving the world is
Yeah.
justified. And it's not unlike people I have met in my life who think like, well, I'm protesting against war, so it's okay if I treat individuals in my personal life like garbage. Like, they have this weird
Yes.
false equivalency of like, if I'm a good person publicly, then everything else is taken care
Yeah,
of.
I gotta say that's not how it
And
happens.
it's
Yeah,
not.
it's like, when someone says that they're not sexist, but they make a racist comment. It's like, this all comes from the same place of dehumanizing other people. There's
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
really
And
exceptions to
also,
this.
people who say they're not sexist almost always
This
are.
is true. This is very true. It's like, we call it reaction formation, which is when you have like a thought or a part of you that just has an idea and something that you truly believe in, but it's so against what is popular, or you think it's bad, that you do a 180 and you act out, and you do the opposite. One could say that JW did that with the Buffy series, considering that this is a show about
Yeah.
female empowerment and addressing the misogyny of earlier horror films, only to be, and he's made all these movements only for him to be one of the biggest misogynists in that franchise.
Right.
Not
But
only,
out of sight.
yeah, well, his own wife, and what she came out against him with, and
Yeah.
all of these actresses on the show.
Yeah.
Thinking about it now, like, it's impossible not to look at the
I
episodes through that
know. I was doing that
lens.
too.
Every time rewatching something, it's like, well, I can't help but think about Joss Whedon and his impact and his influence on this
Especially
show,
with
and you see
Xander.
how cruelly he treated Sarah Michelle Gellar's storylines and Charisma Carpenter's as
Yeah.
well, and it's just
brutal. And then you see Xander, who, yes, he obviously gets all the funny lines, which is fine. But it's more of not I mean, yes, he is involved in these fights, which made me laugh from last week's episode, where I thought to myself, I'm like, you think if you fight with a Slayer for a few years, you'd learn Taekwondo or something, like you
Yeah.
Yeah.
you'd learn a little bit more self defense.
Or at least like take an effort
Like,
to
she's training all the time,
Yeah.
training alongside her.
Right.
Buffy
It's
would
just
be
almost
fine
like
with
this
that.
entitlement of like, I'll be fine.
Yeah, just I would
Yeah.
not ever want to 100% rely on another person for my safety.
Yeah, even the Slayer.
In one of the comics, I've been reading a bunch of the Buffy comics, but because there are so many of them and they have different varieties of being attached to the original show, I'm reading one right now that takes place during season 3, and it's meant to be canon, and it's before Xander and Cordelia have broken up because he is taking some kind of martial arts classes in secret, and only Cordelia knows about it.
Must have been a
Interesting.
terrible
Comic book.
student.
And I was like, we never see evidence of that in the show. I don't think he learned anything. He must not have stuck with it. But I was like, ooh, I've always complained about that about Xander. Like, why doesn't Xander, like, learn to use a sword, practice with a bow and arrow,
I mean,
like
he's
anything?
this het white male.
But,
I mean, he's like, I'll be fine, and sure enough, most of it he is.
I mean, he is usually.
Yeah.
So he has that plot armor in there. Yeah, I the whole episode was just fascinating to sort of see these real life themes play out, and just like even to the part where Buffy is updating them about the amulet, and they give it to and she gives it to Wesley. We see, and then she says something about like it was a big party or something, alluding to the fact that there was a fight, and Giles, who we know was fired from the council because he was not buying into the patriarchy and was wanting to care for Buffy as a daughter and take care of her with her boundaries and her well-being and her safety, which is not with the council. And she goes, yes, thank you for asking, and looks at Wesley, and it's like, yes, this isn't going to work with Buffy. She's not tolerating it. And then Wesley doesn't even pick that up. He's like, well, I expect you would be prepared. And like, I am talking back to the episode being like, you weren't, motherfucker.
Yeah. Wesley, at this point in the Buffyverse timeline, Wesley doesn't really have any redeeming characteristics.
No.
He's full of himself. He's overly formal and prissy.
Automatically attracted and inappropriate around Cordelia.
No.
That's not until next episode.
Is it the next episode?
Next week or the week after.
Yeah,
they haven't met yet.
She doesn't walk into the library in this episode?
No, that was Faith.
No, I think that's next time.
I don't even remember I haven't watched the next episode. I guess that really stuck with me then.
Yeah, it's a pretty memorable scene when he and
because
Cordelia
it's all about
spoilers.
Spoilers.
Cut
Sorry,
that out.
everybody. That's next time.
Heads up, previews for next week.
But he immediately comes across as like the dark mirror image of Giles, right? They dress kind of alike. They have that moment when they both do their glasses.
I
they're
love
like,
that.
and Giles notices it and Wesley doesn't. And they were trained by the same people. They're both British. They're both men. There's a lot of similarities there. So it's an interesting comparison of like Giles meeting his like dark, for lack of a better word, half with Buffy and her dark half, which is Faith. For Walking Dead fans who might be listening, I said to Kara several weeks ago, and I've been waiting till it seemed relevant to talk about on the podcast, but I see Buffy and Faith as Rick and Shane from the first 2 seasons of Walking Dead, where Shane is impulsive and violent and fierce and powerful and sexy, and Rick is thoughtful and connected to his family and grounded and worried about taking care of everybody and the big picture, and Shane is very directed and focused on the small picture and the people that he cares about. And Rick looks at Shane and is like, is that who I could be? Could I turn into Shane? Yeah. And there are times when he thinks Shane's way might be the right way, but we all know how that works out, that Shane is too dark and too fierce and too impulsive. and can't control himself, and the person who can plan and the person who has real love in their life has more longevity. And the similarities between the two pairs, Buffy and Faith, Rick and Shane, now that I've thought of it, it just like jumps off the
It's
Every
so
screen
much
time.
there. And also,
constantly.
Penny, the homoerotic subtext between each of those pairs is definitely present.
See,
Yeah, Shane and Rick
I don't know
definitely
what it
have a
was.
bromance, like unrealized
I
thing.
never picked up on it or saw it with Rick and Shane, and it wasn't until I started like listening to other podcasts and looking into blogs, I was like, huh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
I did pick up on it with, anyway, it's not a Walking Dead, but with Buffy and Faith,
yeah.
it just like oozes off the screen to
So
me.
much in this episode, and
Yeah.
I'm here for it.
And
that would have been
I
a
don't
great
think
date
that's
for Buffy.
accidental.
No,
at
it
all.
can't be. And well, we know from talk like when the introductory episode when Faith first appears, we talked about, I think it was Doug Petrie that mentions how he intentionally wrote this kind of sexual attraction eventually between Faith and Buffy. And it's clear, and she and Michelle Gellar, what is wrong with me
I like how
today?
you last named her.
I know. Sarah
Yeah.
Michelle Gellar and Eliza Dushku have fantastic chemistry.
Really?
And I think even if Buffy has no intention to ever act on that, I think it feeds into part of her, little bits of rebellion, that feeling that, she's acting out in this episode.
Yeah. I
And
think
even,
Yeah, I mean, she's still a teenager who doesn't want to always follow the
Yeah.
rules, right? I think it's in Helpless that she says something like, I hate being the good
Yeah.
one. And she doesn't want to always be, goody two shoes, but compared to Faith, everyone's always going to be more rule following than Faith. But it's part of Faith is seductive in all of the ways, right? It's not just that she's sexy, it's also that she's dangerous. It's also that she can understand Buffy in a way
Yes.
nobody else can
Yeah.
because she's another
Absolutely.
Slayer. And that is kind of like why Buffy has her attachment to Angel too, because up until now, before Faith, Angel was the only one who had even a chance of understanding
Yeah.
what it was like to be a Slayer. And, she bonded with Kendra and she lost Kendra, and here's Faith. And, she struggled with Faith. She calls her, her annoying little sister sometimes, but there is a part of her that wants to be free of the responsibilities of being a Slayer and to find the joy in it. And in that moment where, when they break into the sporting goods store and steal things, right up until the cops show up, Buffy is like, oh,
One?
maybe Faith is right. Maybe this is the way
I
to
think they-
live.
Yep.
Of course I clipped it, so we might as well play it.
When are you gonna get this, B? Life for Slayer is very simple. Want, take, have.
Want. Take. Have. I'm getting it.
Drop the weapons and get down on the ground. Now!
Aw, just
The
I
soundtrack in
know.
this episode is fantastic too.
It is. And
The
just
music
like
choices are just
Buffy and Faith are having a
top-notch.
great first date, and these two guys come in and bust it all open, and I'm like, oh, come on.
Yeah. I mean, this is the same day that Buffy left chemistry through the window. And they found the nest, and they had that amazing moment where they bust in with the sunlight, like Kool-Aid Man style,
That
through
was
the
great.
blackened windows.
I
That's
know,
awesome. It's
so
iconic.
good.
I love that moment. And then it's the same night that they were dancing at the Bronze, like having a great time, being young and free in America, right? Like, we're gorgeous women dancing with whatever dudes are here. And they're very happy, and everything is exciting and fun, and it's a little bit like when you're hanging out with somebody who is a drug abuser, but you're just a recreational drug user, and you're having a great time, and you don't realize that the other person is in a bit downward spiral.
Yeah.
And that things are really bad. Because Buffy is like, if this is as bad as it is, this is the baddest part, that she's okay with that level of bad.
Well, this is...
But she doesn't realize how deep it goes.
It's like Buffy's indulging that side of her, whereas this is how Faith operates every day for the most part. She's, her...
And Faith desperately wants a partner who can be that person with her.
Absolutely. And like you said, people who are safe, who can protect themselves.
And I wanted to ask y'all how often you thought about Ted in this episode, because I can no longer watch this episode without thinking about it the entire, especially after, Faith has actually killed Alan, because Buffy knows what it feels like to have killed a man, because when Ted and her got into that altercation, she didn't know until much later that he was, this 1950s sexist robot guy. But when it happened,
she went through deep grief and guilt.
And she felt terrible. The law enforcement aspect kicked in immediately. It had real consequences, and she really struggled with that. And I think that episode was so necessary for the viewers to see before seeing this one, because one, we know Buffy can put herself in Faith's shoes, and two, how drastically different Faith takes her, coping and her reaction than Buffy does. And, Buffy still has that hope that she can reach Faith, she can, relate to her and connect with her about this, but she just slips further and further away.
She never brings up Ted, and I've never really understood why they never bring up Ted. Like, at no point does Buffy say, listen, this thing happened last year where I thought I killed a man, and so I know what you're going through.
It is just very different. Like, they're the approaches, because Buffy is not used to repressing and avoiding. So when she thought she killed Ted, she was scared, she was grieving, she was thinking like, let's go to the cops. She was used to processing, because that's what her support system allows her to do. Faith is used to avoidance and repressing everything. And so she's like, I mean, we kind of see her in that very quick clip where she's looking at Alan's body, and you just like, I mean, Iliza Dushku just did such a great job, and we see it later when Buffy's bringing up like, we should go to the cops. This is trauma thinking, right? Like, I mean, Buffy's just she is, for better or for worse, still a child, and Faith is like, oh, I'm not going to the cops at all, I covered it up, we don't have to think about it ever again. And Buffy's like, no, we need to go forward. And it's like, okay, I think the truth is somewhere in the middle. Slayers who are tasked with protecting the world from evil on top of a hellmouth, and this was an honest mistake that the justice system can't possibly understand. And so it is a bit about kind of with the Ted episode.
Go to Giles.
Right? I mean, I can see how Buffy's like, this isn't my secret to tell, and everything. And so we sort of see like how they've lived up until this moment where this trauma happens. These protectors who accidentally killed with Alan, who they believe to be a completely innocent person. I don't think this is the exact same scenario, but when I think about people who are tasked to be protectors who accidentally hurt people that they're supposed to be protecting, I think about when I step on my cat's paw by accident, and I'm like,
yes,
it's the worst.
Oh my god.
And like
I'm
just terrible.
Cut my cat the other day.
Oh no.
I was clipping his claws, and he was, fighting me, and I clipped too much, and he was bleeding, and I have never felt so bad in my life.
Right?
I was apologizing to him constantly,
and you just feel so bad.
It hurts so
and I'm
much.
Thinking like, knock on wood, God forbid anything happens to our babies, of like, if we accidentally killed an animal, like I mean,
Oh
like obviously this is
gosh.
a human, but just sort of that feeling
Yeah.
magnified by like a million or something is
Well,
just
yeah.
like
I ran over a
has to be the
fox with my car
responsibility.
one time
Oh,
and cried for a
yes.
couple of hours
Yeah.
afterwards. My ex-husband did not know what to do with me at that point, and I was just like, it was alive and now it's dead, and it is solely because of me.
Yes.
And he was like, well, it ran out in front of the road. I was like, it doesn't know what a car is.
Yes.
Like,
It's
I
that
just had a little mini
helplessness. Yes.
spiral
And
about it.
imagine if it had like a fox family. You're like, oh gosh, is the fox family there? And
Oh
the
yeah,
fox
don't
loved
worry,
one.
I went through
I
that
know,
too.
I did too. And when I hit a bird with my
God.
car and sobbed about it, that was
Oh, I
last
hate
year.
that.
So I mean, but like, I
Oh
mean, it's just that thing that
gosh.
I imagine is so devastating, and there really isn't, like a rule book for that. And I'm just fascinated, like you said, like when
Yeah.
you said, I'm like, oh, they're totally different trauma responses.
Well, and Buffy is
Yeah.
so used to, for the most part, following the rules.
Yeah.
She has little bits of rebellion here and there, like going to a frat party with Cordelia and not being upfront with Giles or her mom about where she was, which is typical teenage
Yes.
stuff. And when she sees this happen in front of her, she kicks in with what we are typically taught, like call 911, like get law enforcement involved. We've got to explain what happened. We need to see what we can do. And it snaps her out of this period of recklessness, kind of trying to fit in with Faith and acting out. And from that moment on, it's almost like the veil has been lifted.
Yeah.
She is no
Yeah.
longer
Yeah.
in.
She's not interested in being a
No.
bad girl with
No.
Faith anymore because she's like she sees not only that bad things can happen,
Mm-hmm.
right? Alan is killed, and I finally can remember his name. But that she sees that in order to live that way, Faith is closed off and pushing people away and locking people out.
Yeah.
And I think back to the beginning of The Wish when Cordelia is leaving the bronze and Buffy gets this thoughtful look on her face and runs after her. And she says, I know you're hurting a whole lot. And I remember what that was like. But you know what? I talked to my friends about it and it got better.
Mm-hmm.
Like she's aware of the need to process and that it helps. And she's experienced trauma before, but she has regularly talked to her friends about it within a short amount of time. Like the longest one was when she ran off to LA after having to send Angel to hell.
Yeah.
Understandably, took her a while to be able to talk about that one, but she did eventually talk about it with Willow and Giles so that she could process it and come out the other side because it was messing her up.
Yeah.
It was messing everybody up.
Well, and it's so interesting to me too how it took Faith killing a man to snap Buffy out of it, and we see how much influence and how seductive she finds kind of letting go, because she hurts, like they injure these police officers pretty seriously, and that is not enough to snap Buffy out of it.
I think she was mostly snapped out of
I
it by
don't know,
then
like
So
because
this
she was uncomfortable about it and
she was definitely
she didn't go back to the
uncomfortable.
sporting goods store and
so
get weapons, right?
yeah.
She was like, I can't believe you went back for that stuff.
She's shifting.
Yeah.
I think if I had to guess, like one of the things when people are stuck in their PTSD, one of the reasons, the main reason I would say a lot of people go and get help is when they end up hurting someone else that they care about.
Yeah.
Or in the case of Buffy's experience, she's supposed to protect humans. And because of her
Mhm.
trauma, her trauma impulse, like living into this impulse of just don't think, just do, right? Like see, take, have, like go, go, go. And so she's realizing her impulsivity from this trauma mindset just killed an innocent person that she was in charge of protecting. So I wonder if that just sort of shocked her out of her own trauma with a new trauma. So
Yeah.
sometimes I end up seeing people when they have historical trauma and then a new traumatic event brings them in and they can't cope with it. So this, I'm wondering if like this new
Mhm.
trauma just like boom shook her out of it because it does violate her responsibility so harshly.
Yeah.
Oh
Because
yeah.
even after they've broken in, which to the store and take, trying to take weapons, that's pretty extreme for Buffy. And Faith, what is it when they're in the back of the car and Faith's like, we can't save the world basically if we're in jail. And Buffy's like, you're right, that's true. Like, she's
Yeah.
still kind of like going along
Yeah.
with it. And the fact that, it's kind of like that you hear sometimes about people needing to hit rock bottom, and I don't think
Yes.
that's you know a universal truth necessarily. I think it's true for a lot of
Yeah.
people, and that's essentially what happened here with Buffy.
Mhm.
There's something that they cannot take back or justify at this
Yeah,
point.
there's a saying, I did not come up with this, I heard it, that the only person who likes change is a baby with a dirty diaper.
That's funny.
And that is 100% true. Yes,
Sounds about
we could
right.
change if we have to.
There are many babies who will protest quite strongly when you try to change them.
Very fair, very fair.
And there are a lot of babies that really do not like having their diaper removed and then being
Yeah.
naked. Like it freaks them
Yeah.
out.
Oh man.
Totally fair. Yeah,
So even not even babies always like
It's like
change.
for the most part, there's so much going on in our lives as humans, so I can't even imagine as Slayers of we change. Sometimes we change when we want to. It's a goal of ours. We really do change when we have to. If we also if we want to. So like,
Yeah.
like I will stop
Yeah.
eating so much sugar when my doctor tells me something's wrong. I'm like, okay, I guess I need to cut back. So
Yeah.
it's definitely sometimes we can be motivated to do other things, but and I will say, mostly we change when we have to. I think that was a big thing. Like I think there were little parts where she's pulling away of like, I'm not really that extreme anymore, and that was just such a rattle, like, oh gosh, I cannot be this reckless like Faith is. Someone just died,
Yeah.
an innocent person.
Yeah.
Well, and the way
Yeah.
they shot this episode and the way it was structured, including the sound and the music that they used, it was so well done where even watching it, you almost felt like it was this frenzy building up
Yes.
to the moment where Faith stabs
Yes.
Alan, and then it just all comes crashing
Yes.
down. And that just watching it, I was like, man, they're good at this.
Yes,
This is
because
so clever.
there was a lot of frenetic movement from scene to scene to scene, and there was a
Mhm.
lot of fast moving, like the epic Kool-Aid Man scene, the synchronized slaying, and then we see just this accident happen essentially, and then everything slows down. They're barely moving. There's a
Yeah.
lot of like facial reaction shots, and you just see people in this mode of oh gosh, oh no, oh no, and so it was just like really powerful to watch, like you said, like the pacing and everything of like
Yeah.
everything kind of slows down. And what pulls Buffy out of this shock and trauma of gosh, we just murdered an innocent person, we did the absolute opposite of what we're here to do, is her calling to duty to save someone that she loves, Giles. I mean, and
Mhm.
Yeah,
Leslie, but
Giles.
like, it's like, oh yeah, let's
I
go.
love that scene. I love that scene so much when when Buffy and Angel storm in, to save the day. I'm gonna play the clip. I've entitled it "Wesley is a Boogie."
The front.
That's what she said.
Moisten the front.
Oh, God. Doesn't seem too promising, does it?
Stay calm, Mr. Giles. We have to stay
Oh, my God, you're here. I was planning to panic.
What is that thing?
That would be your demon, the dead one.
No need to get snippy.
Bring them closer. You know what I want.
If it's for me to scrub those hard-to-reach areas, I'd like to request you kill me now. Ow.
Are you out of your mind? This is hardly the time for games.
Why not? They're going to torture us to death anyway.
You're not wrong about that.
Now, hold on. We can deal with this rationally. We have something you want. You have something we want.
A trade intriguing. No. Wait. Boring. Pull off his kneecaps!
No. The Slayer gave it to someone, a tall man, a friend of hers. I can tell you everything.
Be quiet, you twerp. They'll kill us both.
But I'd like to have my kneecaps.
You will tell us everything!
Yes, sir.
What is this friend's name?
I didn't actually catch it.
Come. Tell you what, let Captain Courageous here go, and I'll tell you what you need to know. How's that deal?
There is one deal! You will die quickly, or you will die slowly! The man who has my amulet! What is his name?
His name is Angel.
Good.
It's such a great hero moment when they charge in there and they just decimate Balthazar's, stupid duelist cult
And he's
followers
just
or whatever.
chanting.
And Buffy gets another awesome creative sleigh with the electrical
That
cord
was a
that
good
she,
line.
electrocutes Balthazar with.
And Balthazar, as they're winning, Balthazar is just chanting unacceptable. Like he turned into Dr. Evil from Austin Powers. What is happening?
Yes.
Also,
So
dear
gross.
God, Penny, Balthazar is even more disgusting when it's just audio. I did not think that
Oh, I
was
know.
possible.
The squelching.
Yeah, the
I
sounds and
mean,
everything.
I
Oh,
could just
he's nasty.
visualize
Like, no, thank you.
his squishy, squeaky bouillabaisse of disgusting that was happening in that
Yeah.
episode.
It is so vile. Nothing though makes Giles sexier, except for band candy,
Yeah.
than the comparison to
Yep.
Wesley.
No.
Right?
He's
Like,
so
Wesley being
hot.
like, don't panic. And Giles is like funny and
No.
debonair.
That
and
like
suave.
snarky
Yes, I
like,
have that.
wit that comes out under,
Wow, that
you know,
snarky British
stress.
sass. Like,
Yeah, it's like, all right,
And
Giles.
I love when Buffy charges in and she grabs the one guy's sword and Giles just calmly turns his back to her and puts his hands out so she with one motion just gracefully slices through the ropes and he knew she was going to do it and it was this beautiful
dance.
they don't need to speak in order to
You
coordinate
know,
with each other.
Absolutely.
It was so gorgeous.
we talk a lot about the different life stages we've been in watching this show and how I was,
Mhm.
you know, 4th, 5th, like middle school watching it, elementary and middle school watching it the first time, then again in college. And this is how I know I've really grown up at 35, almost 36, because now this is the first rewatch while I am so attracted to Giles.
Same.
I don't understand it
Same.
because it didn't happen even when I was like 20
No.
doing an in-depth rewatch.
Same. Like,
but now I'm like,
it's
huh.
been a number of years, but now as I'm almost 40, I'm like, oh, our Zaddy in the tweed suit. I'm just like, get it.
Yeah.
Like, I
Oh,
am
Yeah.
definitely, he's
gosh.
smart, he's charming, he knows how to fight, he is very respectful.
Mhm.
Like, I
Oh my
mean,
God.
funny.
And with the audio,
He's
having
appropriate
only
towards
the audio on
teenage
the
girls.
podcast, his voice is
Yes.
beautiful.
It-
Like I could listen to him all day. Does he do audiobooks? I bet
Oh,
Anthony
I hope
Stewart
he
Head does
does.
I
audiobooks.
hope so.
I hope he does. So I had some questions about Balthazar.
Okay, yeah. Awesome.
Do we know why his minions were basting him in that bouillabaisse of disgusting?
Yes.
Like,
I don't know, but I think I know. So my understanding is that the design of the Balthazar demon is meant to be a huge demon, like
Yeah, it was
physically
cursed.
huge demon who and it was the mayor
He cursed
100
him.
years ago, like disempowered him and like took his like bones basically,
Yeah.
and he fell into this
He's
like
just
puddle.
like a big,
So you imagine all
mushy
that
guy.
size if it were stretched out across a big skeleton
Ah.
would be terrifying. But he's turned into like a pile of skin basically.
Hence the
And
squelching.
they
Ugh.
have to keep him damp because otherwise his skin would like chafe and rub and like
That'd
it
be
probably
great for
hurts and gets like tight.
That'd be great
and
for like
stretched.
a Jergens commercial. I
Like-
mean, like
Yeah.
dry skin.
Yeah. He's definitely in need of some serious lotion. What I don't understand is why they haven't like hooked him up with like a misting device or something. Like
That
it's
would make
Right.
so much sense.
like the ladle seems so
Yeah.
low
Okay,
tech, but
that
I
Like
makes
guess
break
sense.
into
So
a
they-
greenhouse or something and utilize their technology.
Yeah, or like
That makes
Vaseline.
yeah, or like just put him in a shower.
Yeah, just like
Yeah.
constant running water. This is like a little like spa waterfall just coming over him all the time.
Yeah, just have it come from the back and over the.
I think
Yeah,
it's a different
seriously,
commercial.
but
I think it's like
yeah. Every now and then when I watch this episode, I try to picture what he would look
Yeah.
like if you stretched him
I
back out and
know.
he was his full
Yeah.
size. And
Must
it's
have
like,
been
oh,
It's hard
enormous.
to.
he would be so
Yeah,
huge
he
and
must have been
gross.
enormous. Oh, okay. So thank you. That helps me. So I was like, why are you basting him? This seems
Yeah.
very weird, and I do not remember why. And then, do we know like how did he get the force when he floated his minion over to like snap Crackle Pop?
I know.
Yeah.
I think that's his
Yeah.
power, but they never.
It's very
When they're
convenient.
talking about him at the beginning, Wesley doesn't go, "Oh, he had telekinesis,"
Mhm.
which would have been very helpful.
Yeah, exactly.
I do
Right?
like the sound effects they used though when he did that. It was
Yeah,
like,
the
"Wah, wah, wah,
I was
wah,
like,
wah, wah, wah."
jeez, like
It was very like
Yeah.
Bionic Woman, like 80s,
Yeah.
70s sound.
I watch he
effect.
has like a
loved it.
boombox in the corner and it just plays every time he does it, like it's motion activated whenever they float over.
Wah, 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 wah,
He
wah.
seems like he likes drama as well. So
Yeah, he's a little bit of a drama queen.
It's true.
I
Pulling off
love
kneecaps
his
is
line.
pretty dramatic.
Yeah, when he's like, a trade, intriguing. No, wait,
Yeah.
boring. Oh my god, I want to use that in a legal negotiations.
he's just like there's no filter
like,
in
"Oh, a
there. It's whatever
settlement."
he's thinking just kind of comes right through.
Yeah.
And I'm like, did that also get zonked out with your
Well, he's
bones?
used to being the boss.
That's true. Oh, it's
Oh
so
my gosh.
gross.
Oh, it's so
Yeah.
disgusting. And it's a key clue that he lost his power 100 years
Mhm.
earlier.
Yeah.
And, the Scoobies haven't yet connected that to the mayor, but I guess that was a little bit of a spoiler. Sorry,
Mhm.
first-time watchers. But
They
it was the
kinda
mayor who was
hinted.
his
I mean, I
big...
felt like there
Yeah.
was
Yeah, it's
foreshadowing
hinted.
that will make sense.
That's why the
mayor.
cult was after the
Exactly.
mayor and wanted to
Exactly.
he wanted to kill him and
Speaking of the
everything.
mayor, what did you think of the mayor's creeper closet that also had hand wipes in them?
Oh, God.
Oh, I love his
Yeah.
closet. It's so funny because he's opened it before on the show, and he's always getting something out of there that's like benign, but you see all the
Uh-huh.
offering stuff and weapons and skulls and stuff. And I think at one point he pulls out one of the skulls and like uncaps it and smells it. I think there's
As
like
if it's
liquor or
a
something
candle
in the
almost.
skull.
It's like a decanter.
Yeah.
But at first
Yeah.
I was like, what is that? Like, what is
Yeah.
he doing? Well, and he's just so, I love his character. And what does he say at one point? He talks about, finding out that he can become invincible or whatever whatever his final line is, and he wants to celebrate by going out for root beer. I'm just like,
Yeah.
oh,
I
buddy,
know.
you're so wholesome.
I love that scene. So he has a to-do list, right?
Yes!
He pulls the to-do list out of his
It's
pocket.
so
And the things
funny.
on his to-do list
Meet with the
were
PTA.
greet
Yeah.
somebody, lunch with the PTA, something about a plumber being rescheduled,
Haircut.
call temp
Yeah.
agency, become
I
invisible.
like the meet with the
Perfect.
PTA. Was that like a
Check.
throwback to gingerbread?
I think so,
Probably
yeah.
what
Probably.
makes
He's
with the
just
PTA.
so
Come on now.
great.
Probably an evil one.
brilliant.
I love the mayor. I think he's a really creative
Good.
villain
Mhm.
because of his like avuncular, like warm, goofy mannerisms. The way he like loved those Cub Scouts and was like, "That's the future of America.
Yeah.
You can just eat them up."
It's
And
like,
we're like, "Please don't eat
yeah.
them."
It's a little tongue.
And I never get tired of Mr. Trick. I love
love
everything
his
about Mr.
character.
Trick.
I
I
know.
love his. I love like in the opening or the early scene with them when Alan is like, "Oh, should we postpone the dedication?" And Trick is like, "I believe the honorable mayor hates that idea." I'm like, "Yeah,
Tell
Trick,
him.
tell him." Like,
Poor
I'm just,
Alan. I mean, we've all been there. Well, at least I've definitely been there more than once where you're in a meeting and you're working with someone and you realize you are in way over your head and you have no idea what
Yep.
to do. You don't agree with it and
Yeah.
you're like,
It's like, oh
Okay.
crap.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, he's got that like deer in
Yes.
headlights look.
Yeah.
all
Well, and
the
he's
time.
trying
Like,
to fit
"Ah."
in when they're talking about the
Yes.
comic strips that he reads. He's like, I like to read Kathy.
Which of course.
And the
Which
silence.
of course.
You like Family Circus?
I like Marmaduke.
Oh, he's always on the furniture. Unsanitary.
Nobody can tell Marmaduke what to do. That's my kind of dog.
I like to read Kathy.
Which
It's so
of course
funny.
he does. I mean, poor Alan just reminds me of the intern that was there during the summer that got hired on for the job and was just not allowed to leave because he works for evil. And he's
Yeah.
like, am I
Yeah.
allowed to leave?
Well, and at one point, he probably thought like, "Oh, I'm gonna get a job at City Hall, and it'll be, what a great future for
Yeah.
me to
It
like move
seems
up in politics."
innocuous.
And at some point, the mayor was like, "By the way, I'm evil, and I have a
And-
plan,
yeah.
and all this stuff is gonna happen." And Alan was like, "If I quit,
Yes.
you'll kill me."
Yep.
Yeah.
And he's
And he's
just
like,
stuck
who
there.
Which
could I
makes
possibly
it more
tell?
painful that Faith kills him.
Yeah.
I know.
Because he
Yeah.
seemingly wanted a
I
way
think
out.
that's the
possibly.
assumption, and I don't think we ever really get like a very clear answer, like because I mean he died and he didn't tell anyone, of like he was
Yeah.
going there to warn them about the mayor's 100-day plan that he talked
Plan.
about.
Yeah.
And unfortunately was killed. Like you said, it adds to the tragedy, Kara. I'm pretty sure, like I've rewatched season 3 a couple of times. I could totally be wrong. That's another throwaway line that I forgot. I'm pretty sure the assumption is that he was in that alley to warn them because he knew that they would be around where Balthazar's minions
That
are.
was my assumption.
Spoilers. That's
Oh,
next
whoops,
episode.
Sorry. Sorry, I was like,
That's okay.
So, more on
yeah.
the the Wesley thing. I like the quote where he goes, "I faced 2 vampires before under controlled circumstances," and Giles is like, "Well, you won't find those here." It's like, vampires, controlled circumstances, and Giles looks
like,
so
come on,
freaking
Wesley.
proud. He's like, controlled circumstances. He's gonna die.
Yeah, he's like, gotcha.
That pompousness won't last long.
Nothing makes Giles look sexier than
I
Wesley.
know.
It's
true.
I don't think it's a
just-
coincidence
Well, the
that this
bonding-
council person is his shadow half and is incompetent at his job. And it's like, yeah.
That's the
Yeah.
thing. And I enjoy like any Buffy and Giles interactions I love, but he and Buffy bonding to just give Wesley
I
shit
love it.
makes me so happy.
I do
Also, are we
too.
still using fish to bleep out curse words? Or is there something
Yeah.
new? Because
There's gotta be something that Balthazar says that we can use.
I know.
But yeah, no,
Well,
I
and
love
it's
that
like-
banter. Like the 3 of them, the chemistry in that scene was fire.
Yes.
I have, in fact, faced 2 vampires myself. Under controlled circumstances, of course.
You're in no danger of finding those here.
Vampires?
Controlled circumstances. Hello, Buffy.
Well. Hello.
New Watcher?
New Watcher.
Wesley Wyndham Price.
He's kind of C-3PO-ish.
It's very nice to meet you.
Is he evil?
Evil?
The last one was evil.
Oh, yes. Gwendolyn Post, we all heard. No, Mr. Giles has checked my credentials rather thoroughly and phoned the council, but I'm glad to see you're on the ball as well. A good slayer is a cautious slayer.
Is he evil?
Not in the strictest sense.
Well, I'm glad that's cleared up.
So what I loved in that scene.
In
Are
that
you talking about the
scene-
lean in too? Yeah.
The lean, yeah. I love it.
No, you
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Okay, so when Wesley says a good slayer is a cautious slayer, he leans in, and Buffy and Giles simultaneously and exactly in sync
Yep.
lean away
Like,
from him. And it happens again later at the Bronze when he leans in to talk to
Mhm.
Buffy, and she just leans back. Like, respect my personal space,
So
dude.
funny.
It's
just-
just so
that is close
great.
enough.
It is so
Well, she
great.
just doesn't take him seriously in the slightest and has zero respect. Like when he makes that comment I didn't get this job because of my looks. And she's like, I really, really believe
I
that.
know.
It's so,
I mean,
she's like, damn,
yeah,
Buffy.
he goes in with a sense of entitlement. Like, he goes
Yeah.
in like, you work for me. Like, I think he even says that, like, I give you orders. And it's like, excuse me? Like,
Yeah,
you
I'm like,
don't exist without
Yeah.
me.
When Giles sends me on a
Yeah,
mission, he says, please, and I get a
Yeah.
You just see Giles like laughing. You can tell like those three actors just had the best. Like they just clicked immediately. Like they just did such a great job. And it kind of, and not to nerd out on psychology again, it reminds me of the Robbers Cave experiment. Have you two heard about that?
Yes.
So kind of
Oh, I
like
don't know what
super
it
brief, so I
is.
don't put anyone to sleep that's listening, including you two. But like, it was an experiment done by psychologists and camp counselors of how to get a bunch of young kids to bond together, because they knew that there was a lot of rivalry amongst these summer camp kids. I believe I may be getting the details wrong, but what they said is that they're gonna have them have a common goal that they had to work with together in order to achieve. There's no other way. You have to work with each other in these teams, everyone together towards a common goal. Or in psychology, us versus them, which is the common goal. And so what happened is they found that people were able to put aside their competitiveness, their petty differences, and they all worked together really really well to achieve the goal. So the idea is that people can be bonded together even if they are very different, and even with a past history of not liking each other and having hurts and pains, like from the episode Helpless, is that if you put them together against a common enemy, a common goal, they will bond together in order to do that. And they actually kind of cool. They did a more recent experiment with this where they did a bunch of teenage boys like together, and then they did a bunch of teenage girls. Now the teenage boys, unfortunately, they didn't have a common goal specifically. They just took a bunch of like teenage boys and they put them together in this place, and they said, okay, you got to figure out a society here. And I guess that was the goal. What they found was there was a lot of competitiveness on who was going to be the leader, who was going to do the different resources, how were they going to do things. A lot of physical fights, verbal aggression. Obviously, they made sure that no one got hurt, but that's how that played out. With the teenage girls, they found out that the teenage girls did not have that. They found was that the teenage girls had a lot of cooperation rather than competitiveness. There was dialogue, there was a community feel, a collectiveness feel. There was discussion of who would like to do the picking the food in the garden, who's good at this, who's interested in this, who would like to be a leader, who is qualified, all the stuff of getting to know the other person. And so it was just interesting to see. I guess these are two isolated experiments and obviously cannot be generalized to everyone. And I just found that was fascinating because
it seems so clear.
It makes me think about Yellow Jackets.
Yeah.
And those girls out in the wilderness, and how they do create a cooperative, for the most part, governing system of their lives.
Yeah, and if they didn't have starvation, what would this have looked like?
Well, yeah. Well, and like the aspect of nature versus nurture and the effect it would have on that to a certain extent to how we're socialized, depending on whether you're a man or woman and
100%.
how you've been raised in this expectation society puts on you. But yeah, that is pretty fascinating, and clearly Giles and Buffy are united against Wesley.
there.
Like when he says something, like Wesley's trying to, talk to Buffy and Faith and get them to cooperate, and he looks at Giles, he's like, you're not helping, and Giles is like, I know, I feel just sick about it. They're so sassy.
We'll talk.
Of course.
You're not helping.
I know. I feel just sick about it.
It makes me so happy when he does that.
It's just peak humor.
It reminds me of when I was younger, like in my 20s, you live in a lot of different housing situations where you have lots of roommates when you're that age.
Yeah.
And the best roommate relationships I had were always when there was one person in the group that all of us didn't like. And the rest of us it just wiped away all the friction that we might have had, because everybody could focus on how that one person was a nightmare. And the rest of us were like, oh, our petty differences don't mean anything compared to this person who puts their name on every banana. their full name with the middle name on every banana.
Oh my gosh,
She was
I know
funny.
the roommate stories, which will be interesting in season 4. I have my own roommate stories.
Oh
So
yeah.
it's an interesting thing, and I appreciate how that played out, and like I have some of like little like bits of, and then there's the Buffy looking Wesley up and down in that terrifying teen girl gaze, just that judgifying. I was
Yes.
like,
Yeah.
I used to do it as a
Shredding
teen
him.
girl, yeah, and it is one of the reasons why teenage girls are terrifying if you don't know them really well, because it's like, ooh,
Yeah.
you could just shred me with your eyeballs and just make
Well,
me
it's like
question
if
my
I see a
self-worth.
group of men standing on a street corner, I'm probably going to cross the street to avoid them. But the same thing is true if I see a group of a bunch of teenage girls. I might also cross the street just to not
I know.
approach them.
That's so
It's
funny.
like,
I don't know.
I don't know.
if I'm afraid of teenage girls.
I don't know if
Interesting.
fear is
Yeah, they
the
won't physically hurt
proper
you. They'll
word.
just make fun of you where you can hear them.
I just
It's
don't
like,
want to
oh,
deal with it.
yeah.
It's just like, let's not.
I mean, I
let's
didn't like
not.
teenage girls when I was one of
Yeah.
them, so
Right? That's the
it's a quote from Grey's Anatomy. I'm like, truth.
You're reminding me of how interesting it was last week. So Kara wasn't on the
It was
podcast
so
because
sad.
of circumstances beyond her control.
Yeah.
And it was just me and Steve and Jason. And Jason had never been much of a Buffy fan. He'd only seen a few episodes before. And his opinion of Cordelia was intense. And it was so funny because he doesn't have the backstory. He didn't know until I told him, like, well, Xander cheated on her. And he was like, oh, that does kind of make it not as bad. And looking at it through his lens, I was like, she is mean.
She
and
was
she is not pulling her punches.
ruthless in this episode. I even, like, you know how I feel about Xander, but watching it again, I was like, damn, Cordy, just
she
let
is
up
just
a little bit.
constant.
Like, you don't have to destroy him.
Like, I would dress like you, but my father actually has a job is mean.
Well,
that is mean.
So when she weaponized
Spoilers
Xander's
later.
trauma in the Christmas episode and was like, you're gonna sleep outside in your sleeping bag again to avoid your parents arguing, and I'm like, that is all. That's domestic
That is
violence.
such a violation.
So what are you talking? I do think like just the writer was like, you know, JW or whatever just would not let it go. Like kind of similar to what I think what JW and the other writers wanted to do to another fan favorite character of ours. He was trying to get the audience to hate Cordelia. And it was like, it was just
it didn't work.
Lot.
It's just Carissa Carpenter has too much inner
charm,
glow that you, even when she's being mean, you can see the depth in her, and it always felt like this is a character she plays in high school.
Well, and it was clear that her you know, harsh treatment of Xander was coming from so much pain and hurt. It doesn't excuse it, but the way that she portrayed Cordelia after, you know, walking in on Xander and Willow, it was so clear how much that affected her, that
it was
everything she did
was
after
conscious choice.
like, all right.
She's like, all right, I'm gonna be a ice
and I'm gonna
queen
hurt him the way he's hurt
and
me.
be as mean as I can.
She was lashing out, and you could at least understand why she was making the choice to do it.
And I think, you know, teenager like prefrontal cortex, still, like that scene where I mean I don't know why. I mean I still have, I mean maybe I do because I'm a woman, and it was just like, I don't know, it may just be a me thing. I'm not thrilled when women call other women hookers. It doesn't offend me because, you know, it's just kind of one woman calling another woman that. It's not as weaponized as when a boy or a man calls a woman a hooker. I'm like, ooh, that feels like you're trying to belittle her. Like you are trying to objectify her.
My generation did not embrace slut or hooker as like
I know, mine too. I didn't.
We did.
Yeah, I didn't use it really, and I'm also like, I don't know. It's just something about kind of similar to like, I'm not a huge fan of when a man calls a woman a bitch, in humor, I'm a little bit easier with,
Yeah.
but like, and in a fight, I don't like it, and it is sort of this gendered
No.
thing where when women say it to each other, it doesn't bother me as much, and I think it's because the historical context of it all, of like, no,
Yeah.
like when women are saying it to other women, it's not as threatening as when,
Yeah.
Well,
yeah,
the
history of it.
history being that men would label women a bitch whenever she would have the nerve to
Yeah.
protest
Yep.
mistreatment.
Yeah. Would.
The problem
It
is that
still
bitch has been
happens.
thrown around. Yeah.
Ugh.
Has
Yeah.
thrown around as a way to frighten women into compliance with the
100%.
patriarchy. Oop, we're gonna upset
Oh, no.
our one non-fan.
Well,
But like,
it's also
and
the term whore. Like, I mean, like we were just talking
Yeah.
about it because we had our family reunion here for my grandmother's 102nd, and like,
Oh, you always talk about whores
yeah,
at family
yeah. I mean,
reunions.
and it's always family members, and like, and my grandmother was like, she's like, I can't remember who they were talking about in the family tree, but they were like, oh yeah, she was a whore, and I'm like, what do you mean? Like,
it's like, whoa, guys.
yeah, and they were like, well, you know.
And were they like, no, literally that was
Well,
her
yeah,
way
no,
of
well,
making money?
no, because that's what I thought. Which is also women couldn't get a lot of jobs back then in the 1800s. But also, no,
Yeah.
like, no, well, she slept around a lot. I'm like, so she enjoyed sex. We're not calling any of the men
Yeah.
in our families whores, which also could be called that. Like, come on now.
Yeah.
I am named after like a lot of people like in our family. One of them that like we're named after is he was married to a woman in our family, and he would keep his mistresses on the side, and he had 2 entryways to his hotel room so that if his wife was trying to catch him out in the middle of the day, he could shove his mistress out the other door and not get caught. Why aren't we calling him a whore? And they're like, no, he was a good
Yeah,
guy.
because it's
And
a
I'm like,
gendered
yeah,
term.
he's a good guy who cheated on his wife and slept around. Like, but I mean, you know, but yeah,
Yeah.
so it was just an interesting thing of, yes, the historical context of men calling women whores, or really anyone calling them whores. It's not
'Cause
great.
I have to say that the only times that a man has ever called me a whore has been when I have turned
Yes,
them down.
also that.
And I'm always like, it's the opposite
Yeah.
of whore.
Or if
Yeah.
they're
Like, I'm
hitting on
saying
you,
no.
they're like,
Yes.
fine, I didn't want to
Yeah.
sleep with you
He's-
anyway, or you're
he-
ugly. It's like,
He is essentially
interesting.
saying, you'll give it up to anyone but me. Which is an
Yeah.
odd self-own by him. So it's like, I
Right?
mean, it is just
Yeah.
very much an odd
But it's a way
thing.
to demean and devalue.
Yes, of like, you're
you
not a
in that
worthy person
rejection.
to begin with. Or like, yeah, you're ugly
Well,
anyway.
and I'll
It's like,
say,
what is happening right now? And also,
you
turn them
know,
down, they could get
So
us killed.
I love that the younger generations have embraced slut, and I don't
I
love hooker. I
know.
can't bring myself to like
that
hooker,
was my
but
nickname.
I do.
And
Hooker?
no, so let me provide context to that.
Yes, please.
You know, I was born in 1988, so I'm a millennial, a little elder millennial for the most part, but my group of friends in high school was very much so like, hey bitch, hey slut, hey whore, and like we would go back and forth exchanging like calling the others more creative names like Strumpet, Lady of the Evening, Night Walker, or like whatever. And eventually each of us had
Fancy lady.
nicknames. And like, you know, so and so we would call her slut, and so we'd call her a whore, and mine was hooker. And I will never forget the first time my parents realized what that we were routinely calling each other this, because I think on one of my birthday presents or something it had like to hooker from slut or something like that. And my mom was just like,
And your parents were like,
"Yeah,
what?
explain this." And it even turned into like one of my friends called me care whore, like as a
Like Care
nickname.
Bear?
Yeah, like Kara turned into care whore.
I mean, that's
Oh.
kind
And
of creative.
it's just we said it so much and would call each other bitch, but if any of our guy friends
I know.
ever tried to do it, we all shut that
It
down
hits
immediately.
different.
It's like, no, you don't get to say it. Like, you
Yeah.
don't get to call me a bitch. That's not how we're doing this.
It hits different, and like, I don't know, it's just like historical context with all of it. It just hits different. And when people say, well, like, how come I'm not allowed to? I'm like, history, and they're like, well, I never did that. I'm like, no, but people who look like you did. Yeah,
Doesn't matter.
people who look like you did. Sorry.
So
It's like when people
on the last episode of The Extraordinary Cast, which is another podcast that I do with my friend Greg, there was a line in the show where one character called another character a manic pixie dream slut.
Ooh.
Whoa.
And I thought that was hilarious.
That's creative.
And so
context.
I know.
yeah, watch Extraordinary.
Nice.
And so when we did our introductions to the podcast, he's like, "I'm Greg," and I was like, "And I'm the manic pixie dream slut." And he
That's
lost
amazing.
it. It was so great because I didn't warn him that I was going to do it, and he was just like, "Woo!"
We should like
so
do that
funny.
going forward. Like maybe that's like, you know, like for Angel or something, and be like something from the episode of like, I'm one of Angel's black t-shirts.
I couldn't handle it when you both said bad girl. Like, I'm gonna lose it.
Was it my awkwardness?
I think it was my awkwardness that I was just like, ooh.
Ooh, I don't want to call myself a bad girl.
Like little like fan.
It's that
There's a
Southern
comedian-
Baptist still percolating in the background.
There's a comedian I really like named Iliza
I love her.
Schlesinger.
Yes.
And she has a whole bit about bad
I
gal
love
cosmetics.
She is
and
an
she's
elder
like, "Ooh, I'm a bad
I
gal.
love it.
I'm bad gal mascara."
She has a bit about like feeding her inner dragon, and you wait until you're
Yes.
home alone. So like
Yeah.
I've told people that like when it's just been a rough day or a rough week, I'm like, I gotta go home and feed my inner dragon. And they're just like,
Sounds-
what? I'm like, I'm looking for this clip so I can show it to her. I'm like, whole thing of Oreos.
So funny.
Great for a podcast.
Yeah, you gotta watch Iliza Schlesinger in
Yeah,
context.
no,
yeah.
she's
Her whole
amazing.
goat voice.
Yeah.
and, like,
Her elder
she's so
millennial
So good.
hour was
Yeah.
one of the most relatable
So
things
good.
that I've seen.
So speaking of
She's
Xander,
like, yes!
yeah, it's so good. So speaking of
Oh,
Xander,
Xander.
Yeah.
Faith wanting to compare having sex with Xander with Buffy, and I'm like,
She's like,
also
you
came
had to
across
have
as
slept
flirting
with
her
him.
between her and Buffy. Of like,
Yes.
"Hi."
What did she
Yeah.
call it? You getting pelvic? Like, you guys have never gotten pelvic or something? I was like, Faith,
Yeah,
What?
and she kept
I
like
know.
grunting
Yes!
and motioning, and I was like,
Alright.
it's funny. I definitely get a vibe
I do
between them.
too.
There's chemistry, but it's more
Yes.
Faith.
Yes.
Buffy doesn't seem like she's at all bisexual. She seems
No.
like she's
She's-
she's attracted to Faith in
yeah,
a
like she
different
admires
way.
her or wants to
I don't
be
think
a
that
part
she's
of her.
she's
Yeah,
sexual.
yeah, and
She's
definitely
very
Faith. I think like
heterosexual.
Faith is like, you get a few drinks or whatever, she would be like, want to go? Kinda like she
She's
was
bi.
Xander.
Faith has bi energy.
Yeah.
Like, that is
Yeah.
like headcanon. Faith
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
bi. And it's just, even if you're reading that scene in, through a purely straight lens where maybe Faith is wanting some validation for having slept with Xander and finding him attractive, because she makes a comment like, you're slaying and these hormones, and Buffy's like, there are
Oh.
no hormones for Xander. So I could see it
Yeah.
in that
Maybe
way
trying to
of
like
her
wiggle out
wanting,
of it, of like, hey, stuff just happened.
Yeah.
Sorry, I slept with your friend.
like, or even having that, she has that competitiveness with Buffy and
Yeah.
wanting to be able to like say
I can
to
yeah.
her in a like, well, I slept with Xander.
Yeah.
And that
And
type
we
of
know
thing,
how-
but it doesn't play
No,
that
it-
way
no, it
for
doesn't.
me when I watch
I
it.
think you're totally right, Carix, especially with teenagers. Like, that's sort of like, if I'm friends with them, you can't
Yeah.
have them. Like, teenagers are all like that. So maybe it was
Yeah.
meant to
Yeah.
be that way of
Well,
like, hey.
Or that validation.
And we see that with
Yeah.
Willow, right?
Yes.
Like Willow she's got this long history with Buffy. She usually goes patrolling with her,
Mhm.
and she's clearly like jealous and feels left out
Yeah.
when Faith comes and gets Buffy, and Buffy's like, "Yeah, it's better if you stay safe," because
Mhm.
last week Willow was on the other side, being like, Xander, it's better if you stay safe, and now she's on the
Yes.
outside, and she's so bummed. And we are going to see this come back again. This feeling that Willow has of like Faith is taking my people from me.
And it's an interesting thing
It's
because
sad.
it has that throwback to the spell that she did in Gingerbread. Oh my god, all these Gingerbread throwbacks of that she was like working on, and then Willow Willow has that great line, like she goes, "Minty fresh protection." I'm like, the new brand of Trojan. Which is just like with Willow, it's just so, I don't know, it just popped in my brain. I'm like, oh, brain. And so like, I just,
she's so cute, and she can't compete on the same level with Faith, right? She's not dangerous and dark, and and you know, she has superpowers, but she's not edgy and reckless and all these things that make Faith so alluring when you first meet her, until you see through it to like this pain
which is odd, because when I was in high school, my nickname was Nerd. I was picked on quite a bit in school. Like they put gum in my hair and everything. I was probably more of a Willow.
Aww.
Yeah, like I'm
That
all
is
right.
so mean.
Yeah, I have all these horror. I mean, nothing terrible, but like I have all these stories from high school. I was definitely the nerdy kid that got picked on and everything. And oddly enough, I was really close friends with Faith, like high schoolers, and like they were like, looking back on it, I would not ever want my kid to be friends with someone like this. I was also kind of like raised by wolves, so my parents didn't know, but like I mean, like some serious, like intense, dangerous people, and like I mean, I'm dangerous for high schoolers, but like they were impulsive, probably had their own developmental traumas. One of them got sent away to military school. Like, I mean, they were they were always very sweet and wonderful with me. And I think we sort of bonded on our outsider status. Some were kicked out of our school. I mean, like, these were kids that were, as much as we connected, and they were very kind and we connected really well, they were some very, like, hurt people and troubled. And there is like this charm and this charisma and this sort of, you get pulled into them and they are being exciting, and as a teenager you're just trying to figure out who you are. And I did drink and do pot at 16. Should not have.
I did too. When you're a teenager, also the repressing your trauma thing, it works better than it does when you get older, because you still have the energy of youth to be able to hide things and repress things and pretend they don't bother you. In my personal experience, when you're around 42, it explodes. So you need to deal with it before that. But I also hung out with like sort of a lot of the troubled kids in high school, and I felt really comfortable with them because I had my own problems, and I usually say I wasn't raised. I was murdered.
Like I'm raised by wolves.
Because there were so many of us.
Yeah, you had so many siblings.
And even at the time, I was very driven about getting out of that small town and out of that life. And so my rule was always nothing that will get me pregnant in rehab or prison.
Good rules.
And so
even
I had boundaries, but I can't tell you how many times I was with people and they were like, oh, and now we're going to do this. And I was like, that's the line. I'm out.
So much. The amount.
I was like, oh, you're going to go pick a fight with another high school football team? Have fun with that.
The amount of friends that I went to high school with that were on probation I met Hell's Angels people because one of my friends was dating them. I mean, the amount of pregnancy tests that my friends took, I mean, I knew what a pregnancy test was at 14. So I didn't need one, but because you're there and you kind of, at least for me, like, I wouldn't cross the line, and I didn't get a lot of peer pressure to cross the line. Like, I think it was just like cool if you want to, and totally okay if you don't. I remember I was like, I mean, one of my friends definitely was very much into cocaine, and I was like, I don't know, maybe I'll try it. And he was like, absolutely not. This won't be good for you. You get anxious all the time. Absolutely not. And I was like, okay. And this is someone who shared everything with all of us. So, and I was like, oh, okay. Like, it wasn't like he didn't want to share it. He was like, this won't be good. I mean, I wasn't like, give it to me. Like, I was like, meh. So I lost my chance.
Yeah. The myth of peer pressure that we learned about in school.
No one's gonna
I thought I was going to get offered drugs all the time.
No.
McGruff
No,
never
everyone's like,
happened.
that's
Told
cool.
us.
Like, I mean, they were just like, if
Yeah.
you want to, cool. If you don't, also cool. I also, like, wasn't judgy or like, how dare you do that? Like, I didn't care one way or another. But yeah, so it was an interesting thing to see, like, oh, I would have been friends with Faith. And so, like, it's interesting to kind of see, like, how
Yeah, me
Buffy and
too.
everyone else works around her. And so, like, the dancing at the bronze, that was so, like, just cool. Like, I mean, I did that too, like, dancing, or just dance with my girlfriends, and like, just like, and of course the boys would dance around, and
Yeah.
we had like our secret signals of like, hey, he's grabbing my
Yep.
ass,
Yes.
like I don't like it, it's too
Or it's like
much.
signals for whether or not the guy behind you is attractive.
Ooh, yes, also
Like,
that.
Yeah, that's
But
a
we
good
had,
one.
because like there was a lot of booty dancing when I was a teenager, so
Mhm.
sometimes guys
Yep.
got a little too friendly, which, you know, whatever. But we'd be like, we'd make eyes, and then we'd start dancing with each other, because it's like we're not grabbing on each other. And then it made me laugh again from our last podcast where they like, so everyone's having so much fun, and you pan over, and there's fucking Eeyore. He's like, oh, there she is, because he's happy
Yeah.
when he sees her next time. When he's like, hey, I got a mission for
Yeah.
you. But when he sees her, he's like,
Oh, bringing up
Oh, you were making
Angel,
friends.
it's interesting too in this episode that Buffy, after being with Faith, also seems to be a little bit more sexually expressive
Yes.
and free, because when
Yeah.
she runs and like jump
Mhm.
straddles
And
Angel,
he
like
looks
that is not,
uncomfortable. Like they haven't
like,
had sex.
we haven't seen that from her before, that type of affection. Anything that they do always has this undercurrent, mostly of romance,
True.
even if there
And
is sexual tension.
heaviness.
Because they
Yes.
cannot.
And that was a moment that you would expect from a teenage girl and
Yeah.
her
Yep.
boyfriend, not a teenage slayer and her
Her
vampire
200
Eeyore
something
Yeah.
lover.
year
The
old.
Victorian Eeyore that he is.
Yeah.
Yeah, like even at his happiest, Angel is not a like pick you up and spin you
No.
around
But
kind of
I
guy.
want
like,
to know so
Buffy.
bad if that was a choice by Sarah Michelle Gellar, or if
Yes.
it was direction written in the script, because I know that they are very detailed and specific
Yes.
with script directions, but I want to know
That's a good point.
if that was
Yeah.
intentional.
And I like how he even brings
because
her
it
down.
fits.
She was
Yep.
like,
He's just like,
Yeah.
just making friends. And he's not jealous.
Oh.
He's concerned
Yes, and
because she is not
I
being.
think he
yeah,
was a
and he's
little
like,
jealous.
oh, happiness and joy. I don't know what that looks like anymore. So,
But I think
This makes me very
that's
uncomfortable.
true. I feel like concern took over fairly quickly. Like, we know he obviously is a little bit jealous, because when that, in the reference in Buffy's birthday
Yes.
episode, it's like, likes me to call him daddy, and he's like, huh, your dad. It's like, right, your father, right? Like, he needs that validation. So it's not like he is incapable of feeling jealous. It's just, I think once he processes it, it's very clear that he's like, well, you're being different. This is not
Yeah, it's very
Yeah.
normal
This
Buffy.
is very like
This is not regular
flat
Buffy.
Yeah.
affect
This
of
is-
like he just always looks upset, and it's like, okay, sir.
And then she very quickly gets with the
Yes.
program, right? Like
Yeah.
she's silly and flirty for the first couple of minutes, and then she's
Yeah.
like, "Oh,
Yeah.
Parsons thing.
We're
business.
here
Right,
on
I'm on it."
work. All right, sir. No party.
No.
And also Wesley
I
shows
love
up, right?
that.
So Buffy gets to be
Who
all
are you?
superior to Wesley,
Yes.
and then Angel gets to
Yes.
be superior to Wesley, and the two of them are like, "We're
And
so much
Wesley
better
does
than
a
you."
double
And-
take on Angel, which I did not realize, and I was like,
Mhm.
Wesley?
Yeah.
But like
So
one of the
funny.
lines I wrote down was when Buffy like launches herself at him, and she's just like holding on, like all happy, and he's acting jealous, and she goes, "Them boys, I like you." I'm like,
Mhm.
I'm started laughing
Yeah.
because I'm like, that's
Yeah.
not really the compliment you make it seem like, B. Like, I'm like,
Yeah.
boys,
No, I like my men to be at
Yeah.
least 100 years
boys,
older than me.
oh
demons
no,
inside
yeah,
of
that's
them?
what I was thinking. Like,
Like-
boys, I don't like boys. I like monsters.
Oh, God.
Like, way to go, B. Like, it's
Very
not the compliment
Twilight
you
of
think
her.
it is. And he doesn't really take it that way, like
Yeah.
as a compliment either. He's like, work, Buffy,
No.
work.
Well, he's clearly
Yes.
freaked out by her energy. Like the whole thing, he's like, I don't fit in here. We've never seen, as much as Buffy loves dancing and hanging out at the
Yes.
Bronze, Angel never dances with her.
No. Well, he brings in his like kind of skittish black cat energy, and in this one in particular, she's like a golden retriever
Yeah.
running up to him with all this golden retriever energy, and he is immediately like, "Whoa."
He's like, Joy? What is this? I don't know what to do with it.
Hold on.
Take it down a notch or 7. Like, just
golden retriever energy.
It's very similar to how my niece greets me, and I have to really brace myself, because when she was 4 and she would run and jump into my arms, it was just some momentum I had to deal with. But she's 9 now, and she's getting bigger, and like pretty soon she's gonna knock me over when she does it, and I don't have the heart to tell her not to do it because it's so cute. She's like, she'll see me like across a room, or she'll hear me and be like, I know that voice, and then like run and jump into my arms. I can't resist it. I don't know why Angel wasn't like immediately like,
I
charmed.
know. That's why he's Eeyore. No matter what,
it's so
he's
cute.
not gonna be. He would be like the Grouch from Sesame Street, but he's not really cranky. It's like he's just. He's just
Eeyore.
like
he's broody.
Well, and every time he has a moment of starting to feel joy, he's like, "Oh no, joy makes me evil," and then he's like, "Trying to be sad
tampers
again."
it down. Poor Angel.
It's a pretty sucky life.
Yeah, like he just really can't.
Sucky.
Yeah, sucky. Sucky.
He can't afford to ever be happy, and
you figure like
Buffy is. She's like pure light, you know.
Figure like I don't know. They run into some stuff that I won't get into details in Angel. You figure there'd be some way to like Velcro that soul to him or something. So like that ain't breaking no matter what. Like you feel like all the magic.
But I think there's also a part of Angel that is like he doesn't want to lose.
He wants to be miserable
limit on his life, right? Where he's like, if I'm miserable, I'm atoning, and if I find a way that I'm allowed to be happy, maybe I'll stop atoning.
She's so Irish Catholic.
I don't want to do that. And he's like, I know how to feel guilty and broody. I don't know how to be a joyful person, so I'm just gonna.
It reminds me of the John Mulaney stand-up comedy. He's like, we have to be miserable as Irish Catholics. I know that's just a stereotype. It's not true for everyone. But it just reminds me of that John Mulaney specials for it.
Yep.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Oh,
so
John
good.
Mulaney.
As long as we're talking about comedy specials, Alex Edelman's Just For Us premiered on HBO last night.
Nice.
I've seen the show live, and it is utterly brilliant, and I just recommend everybody watch it. It's funny, it's smart, it's interesting, it's topical.
Nice.
He is so charming.
That'll be my Sunday night.
He's a Boston area guy, so I've seen him a few times live, but
it looks
I saw this particular
very
show.
entertaining.
Really
I've added it. Well, you know how they can show like what's coming and you can watch the preview and you can add it. It is added to my list, and every time I see it and I laugh at the trailer and I'm like, "Oh, I'll watch that now." And it's like, "Nope, I can't. It's not out yet." So I'm glad you said that, because now I can actually sit down.
Is it on Amazon Prime?
It's
Max.
No, it's HBO.
Max. Nice.
Max. Oh, but if you have Max through Amazon,
nice. Very nice.
It's
I'm gonna watch it.
Yeah, it's really good, and it goes in a lot of directions that you wouldn't expect. When I saw it live, it was great because there were a couple of people in the audience who apparently did not agree with his politics.
Oh, good luck.
They were making it clear in their body language, and they were talking to each other and like whatever, and he just stopped the show and was like, "What's up? Like, let's talk about it." And they were like, "Well, I don't agree with what you said." And he was like, "There's the door." And they like got up and left. And it was really, I was so glad I got to see that moment, because I'm sure that's not in the recorded version. And see how he handled it. And, you know, he sort of talked to the rest of the audience afterward about it. He was like, "Yeah, it happens sometimes. Like, they made a bad decision about their entertainment. I don't know how those two people who were clearly
well, it's
fans of Nazis made it
That
to my
is a-
show."
well, and it's
you know?
funny. I have been fortunate enough to see Daniel Sloss live a couple times. I just love him, and I think
He's very funny.
people that don't really pay that close attention to his comedy and don't know him that well, like he can come across as very like bro-y. And you can always tell who those people are at his shows because as soon as he starts, respecting women or saying something that is slightly progressive, they're just like, what the fuck? Like, what did we come here for?
Yeah.
It makes me happy.
It's like
just like stay,
Patton
learn
Oswalt
something.
has talked about how because he was on King of Queens for so long, when he would go on tour and do live comedy, King of Queens fans would go.
So
and
different.
they would be like, who is this? This is not what we signed up
wanted-
for. Like the
Hilarious.
character on King of Queens
Yeah.
is like, this particular type
It's
of
like
person,
seeing-
and Patton Oswalt is it's
Yeah,
acting.
It would have been
Yeah.
like seeing Eddie Murphy and I don't know, like Dr. Dolittle, and then going back and watching some of his
Yes.
stand-up.
Yeah, and then you watch
Yeah.
it all.
It's like, oh,
It's like,
this is
oh
different.
goodness, you're using foul
This is
language.
different. All right,
Yeah. Anyway,
tangent but cute story.
Yeah.
My nephew, when he was little, was a huge Shrek fan. Just
Oh, man.
huge Shrek fan. He would pretend to be an ogre all the
That's
time. It was so
adorable.
cute. And this preview came out for a movie. I think we were at a movie theater, and we saw a preview for Space Chimps that stars Eddie Murphy. And it looked horrible to me. And he was like, I have to see that. And I was like, okay, you're like 5 or whatever. You don't have taste yet. That's fine. And I was like, oh, yeah, I'm sure you'll love it. And he was like, that's Eddie Murphy. He's the donkey in Shrek.
Oh
And I was
gosh.
like, I know. And he goes, Shrek was his
Oh my
first
God.
movie. I'm glad he got another
That
movie.
is amazing. Oh, the
I
babes.
was like, oh, honey,
cute.
that wasn't his
the mouth
first
of
movie.
babes. I just want to like.
Just like,
Aw,
We're gonna
but
eat
you're
dinner at
5. It's
8,
like
so I
we'll
have
wait
to
till
leave
you're a little
at
older
8.
to.
All right, guys, now that we've been on a whole bunch of tangents, I think maybe it's time we start to wrap that part up, and let's talk about some pop culture references, or not so pop culture references that were in the episode.
Oh, yes. So, first up, we've got Faith saying this isn't a Tupperware party. It's a little hard to plan. And of course, as we all know, Tupperware is a brand of plastic food containers. And there are people who sell Tupperware. I think it was a little bit more common back in the day. And there were these infamous Tupperware parties where they would display all the different, containers that you could buy. I just think back to Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. There was some very
It was one
colorful
of the
Tupperware,
first
like
like
MLM.
multi-level marketing scams that was directed at women. Early on, it was like it would give like housewives a way to have income and have a social life. Like you were, your husband probably didn't want you working outside the house, but selling Tupperware at parties with other women was considered safe and fun.
Yeah.
And so Avon was around the same time. Both of them were these, self-employed multi-level marketing schemes. Now it's dominated by Mary Kay, and there's a lot of skincare products and like
So
leggings
much.
that do these MLMs. Yeah. Watch out there, you guys. They're scams.
Yeah.
The mayor says, I just love the Family Circus. That PJ, he's getting to be quite a handful. Family Circus is a comic panel by Bill Keane, and it ran for so long. PJ is one of the characters. It originated in 1960 and is today the most widely syndicated comic panel in the world, appearing in more than 1,500 newspapers. I had Family Circus sheets at one point in my childhood.
Nice. It's a classic.
That's so awesome. Mr. Trick says, I like Marmaduke. Nobody can tell Marmaduke what to do. That's my kind of dog. Marmaduke is a comic panel about a troublemaking Great Dane of the same name, written by Brad Anderson since 1954. I also like Marmaduke.
Marmaduke's a
too.
good one. And then, of course, Finch pipes in with, I like to read Kathy. Kathy, is it Guy's White, has been writing this comic, Kathy, about the trials and tribulations of a single career woman since 1976. So it makes me like Finch a little bit more, and it also explains the looks that Mr. Trick and the mayor had on their faces when he popped up with that. I love that.
Yeah. Kathy famously always would say,
That's
when she
right.
was stressed out.
Oh, we can use that for the curse words.
I forgot about that. Yeah, ack. How do you do that with
Buffy?
mother effer? Ack, 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 ack. Oh gosh.
Buffy says the count of 3 isn't a plan, it's Sesame Street. Sesame Street is an incredibly successful children's television show famous for such things as teaching children to count. It is now in its 29th season on PBS. It is also where most people learn about the Muppets, created by Jim Henson. I've had a number of friends who've worked for Sesame Street and for Henson Productions. And I studied the formation of Sesame Street in the 70s when I was in college. It was actually incredibly politically radical at the time, this idea of using television to educate children. And they very cleverly used the structure of advertisements in order to present ideas to children, because the advertising world had figured out how to deliver messages very quickly in a way that got stuck in people's brains. And so Sesame Street borrowed those structures, and that's why you would get this, like, you know, this episode's brought to you by the letter L, and all those things. It was Sesame Street using the power of capitalism for education.
And then, just like all good ideas, it was taken by others and created for evil.
And used to make money. Yeah.
Buffy states, and one big demon in desperate need of a Stairmaster. Stairmaster is the company who first introduced the stair climber in 1983. They now are a prominent manufacturer of exercise equipment, mainly stair climbers.
Those things are evil. I hate stair climbing. Anyway.
It's a hell of a workout.
It is.
Yeah.
It's excellent. I just, flashbacks to swim team dryland practices. And finally, we have Giles mentioning to the most disgusting demon I think we've seen on this show to let Wesley go, and says, "Tell you what, let Captain Courageous here go, and I'll tell you what you need to know." Captain Courageous is a Rudyard Kipling novel, first published in 1897, that is about a pampered millionaire's son who falls off of an ocean liner, is picked up by a fishing boat, and is forced to adapt to their ways and learn about the real world. Seems very appropriate here for Wesley. It was ultimately made into a movie starring Spencer Tracy in 1937, as well as a couple of other more recent TV movies.
It sounds like Overboard, that Goldie Hawn movie.
Overboard.
It does sound like
that's
it.
A fun
Love
one.
that movie. And moving into trivia, Jack Plotnick, who played the deputy mayor Alan Finch during season 3, spoke about his time on Buffy in an interview with BroadwayWorld.com on the 29th of January 2006. "I actually only did 4 episodes. The day we shot my death, they asked if I'd be willing to do my own stunt. Heck yeah, I thought. What could possibly go wrong with that? They put a pad on my back and asked me to throw myself against a dumpster. Okay, that hurts, even with a pad. I don't recommend it. Then she stabbed me in the heart with a stake. Okay, even a retractable stake hurts when you get stabbed in the chest with it." Words to live by.
That's so funny.
Amazing. The mayor of Sunnydale had a fear of germs because Buffy producer David Greenwald has a fear of germs, and the writers wanted to rib him for it.
So mean. It's
Excellent.
just so funny. Oh man. And we do see in this episode when Faith is wanting to lure Buffy out of her chemistry class, she comes up to the school and breathes on the window and draws a heart shape. And Doug Petrie, who was the writer of the episode, said he remembered a similar incident when he was in high school, and a girl who was cutting class drew on the glass in that way, and he thought it was cool. So Faith's want, take, have philosophy was based off of, this idea of what he thought was cool, and something in particular his friend's sister used to say. Oh man.
All right, cool. Alex Scooby, amazing name, who played the vampire and Illuminati member Vincent in Bad Girls, also appeared as Harlan in the Angel episode Sense and Sensitivity. He has also been in Strip Mall and King of Queens.
I never thought we would have mentioned King of queens twice on one of our podcast episodes.
Yeah.
Alexis Denisoff, who plays the Watcher Wesley Wyndham Price. Let me say that again. Alex Denisoff played the Watcher Wesley Wyndham Price. He later went on to play a much stubblier version of Wesley in the spin-off Angel, and goes through quite a character arc on that show.
Yeah.
Alexis married Allison Hannigan, who plays Willow in the 2003 series. Also, they met on that series, and he did not want to date a co-star, so they didn't start dating until after
Oh, yeah.
he went on to the spinoff Angel. And they have 3 adorable kids together.
They are super cute.
Or 2 adorable kids, I think, too.
This is one of my favorite little bits of trivia. At the end of Wesley's first scene, he and Giles both take off their glasses and clean them with their handkerchiefs. That was the stage direction given in the script, and neither Anthony Stewart Head nor Alexis Denisoff knew they were going to be mirroring each other, and their slight surprise that we see is genuine. I
so good.
love that.
I love that moment. The original pitch for the character of Wesley was for him to be a bit like Michael J. Fox in Back to the Future. I cannot imagine this. Wiry, enthusiastic, etc. And so to get on Giles's nerves that way. The writers eventually decided to try and make Giles look cooler and rebellious by making Wesley straight-laced.
Good call.
See, they knew Sexy Giles is Ripper
Good
Giles.
call.
100%.
Joss's original stage directions for Wesley were, he thinks he's Sean Connery, but he's actually George Lazenby.
Dang, that is a good take. I don't like that JW came up with it.
I know.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Buffy originally said a little more to Faith in the last scene. I know you think you can handle this, and you've gotten used to being on your own. You've got your tough loner act down pretty well. And that kind of sums up what I'm curious about with Faith. She's used to handling stuff on her own and being by herself, keeping herself
Very
away.
much so.
And like you were saying, Penny, of not wanting to get hurt.
So we have come to the moment in the episode when I ask, does it still slay? Sam?
I would say overall the themes of the episode definitely still slays. I think teenagers are going through their own things and looking for identity, and how Faith and Buffy acted and reacted are pretty close to how things play out still in our present day age. So I would say it definitely still slays.
Kara?
Yeah, I agree. I think it still slays. I think it's such a pivotal and important episode, not only in this season and the entire series, really. And I just think it's so brilliantly done. I love being able to rewatch this episode. I think both Iliza Dushku and Sarah Michelle Gellar are brilliant in it, and I think it's one of the most significant shows in the series. So I think it does still slay.
And I, of course, agree. I think it slays all day, and that makes it a hat trick.
Ew.
Hey, so let's head on over to the Bronze for some blooming onions, and hopefully they're not having one of those cockroach catching nights, and see what our listeners had to say about the episode.
Bronze things. Things of bronze.
Sam, you want to read Jolene's?
Eek! Am I too late even though I double checked? Laughing emoji, laughing emoji. I don't always rewatch this one, which I'm convinced is because it makes me really uncomfortable watching Buffy act so out of character. Laughing face emoji. However, it also has one of my favorite scenes when Faith walks into the library, sees Wesley, and does the screw that. Walks straight back out. It is actually a great episode for funny one-liners. Again, I just really struggle to watch Buffy being so like Faith. It's weird watching Wesley in this one when you know how brilliant he actually ends up being an angel. I totally agree. It is totally off-putting.
Yeah.
I love how awkwardly stuck up and British he is with that little bit of cowardice thrown in when he's faced with the immediate danger without the controlled circumstances. Nice. Poor Xander and his no college acceptances. He deals with it well, though, with his corn dog emporium placement, though. What is a corn dog, by the way? I've always wondered. Oh, Jolene, it's delicious.
Wait.
Oh, it's so good.
Oh, they're
It's
disgusting.
I love them.
It's so good. They're so bad for you, but they're so...
Just don't think about it too
Yeah,
hard.
it's
So it's a hot dog on a stick that is coated in like a corn-based dough, and that is then
deep fried.
fried.
Yeah.
Deep fried.
And the quality can vary so
Very true.
drastically. So drastic that the Houston rodeo, you know, it's like deep fried everything notoriously. They have the best corn dogs ever. I'm salivating. This is not
I am
good.
too, and I've never even had one.
It's just
Gross.
They're delicious. Anyway.
Faith! Oh, Faith, what have you done? I'm so sad for her that she's so damaged she can compartmentalize killing a human and write it off as an occupational hazard. When you look at the difference in how Buffy reacted to thinking she'd killed a human in Ted, like you were saying, Kara, to how Faith reacts to this, it shows how different they actually are. I don't want to say too much more about Faith's future actions because of spoilers, but this is definitely the final catalyst of what she goes on to do. Totally agree.
Yeah.
Balthazar is
turning point.
Down this dark, treacherous path. She's on it now. Balthazar is the most disgusting demon to ever appear on Buffy, except for Gnarl, but that's a spoiler.
Yes, Gnarl is gross.
That is true. The mucus. That's all I have to say on that. More of the mayor, and we're getting those hints dropped in now that his endgame is going to be what his endgame is going to be. The head splitting scene is always a shocker. I agree. I had forgotten about that, Jolene, too.
Yeah.
Even if the graphics are a teeny bit outdated now. Like I said, there are so many funny one-liners in this one. My favorite one has to be, though, Balthazar. You know what I want. Giles. If it's for me to reach those if it's sorry, Jolene. Giles. If it's for me to scrub those hard to reach areas, I'd like to request you kill me now. Of course, Giles says it better, but
it's like, Jolene, now that I hear your name, I just keep thinking about the Dolly Parton Beyonce collab on Cowboy Carter.
You have to listen, Jolene.
Makes me want to go back.
Really good.
So good.
Hear Beyonce say your name.
Kara, want to read Becky?
Right. Becky said, "Hello, all. Thoughts on season 3, episode 13." Aw, she said, "Welcome back, Kara. We missed you." Thank you, Becky. I was very sad I had to miss. She said, "I loved hearing Jason on the pod talking about the show. It was very cool to hear a POV of someone watching for the first time, for sure. I enjoy every time the mayor shows up. I love how Harry plays him. This huge evil casually discussing Family Circus and other cartoons with Mr. Trick. That is a great scene. The awkward silence when Alan mentions he likes Kathy was funny. I also got a kick out of the mayor taking the photo with the scouts talking about how he could just eat them up. The whole part of the episode was great." Oh yeah, she said, "When did Oz's hair turn black?" Great question.
Yeah.
That throws me off every time I rewatch
Very good question.
Cordy went too low making that comment about Xander's dad. It's also ironic, spoiler alert, given what we learn about her financial situation later. Yep, I agree. And Sarah Michelle Gellar was killing the fashion looks this episode. She looks so pretty in that purple outfit, and also the blue one she shows up to Faith's in. And all caps, Wesley! He's one of my all-time favorites on this show. I adore how Alex plays the part, and it's fun watching how the character evolves over the course of this show and Angel. Faith's quick exit upon meeting him in the library was hilarious. They really amped up on Faith's hard-on for the kill, which I found a bit too much, and I found it hard to believe Buffy would be so easily swayed to break the law, ditch class, etc. Yeah, we definitely talked a bit about
Why we think that
this
is.
in the episode. Yep. She said, I know it was important to the story, but I didn't buy it. I'm glad Buffy snapped out of it, but sad Alan's death is what caused her to. It was a funny moment when Buffy mentioned Xander's eye twitched when she says Faith's name. I did enjoy that. He's so transparent. It's hilarious. Anyone else think of Charmed every time they say the name Balthazar? Yes.
Yeah.
Also.
Yeah.
And also Supernatural.
Mm-hmm.
Every scene with Wesley and the gang and how they just go on about their business as if he weren't there. I loved that. It's sweet how loyal they are to Giles. That's very true. Jabba the Hutt. This demon is gross. Yeah, it is very Jabba-y. She said, I almost gagged when he told the man to moisten the front.
That's what she said.
Yeah,
that was great. Yeah. It's just like, hee. The Sunnydale Police Department isn't around when demons and vamps are terrorizing the city, but they manage to show up when the girls break into the store.
Good point.
That's a good point.
Because the police's job is to protect capitalism
I
and
know.
not property.
The police react after a crime has happened. They don't prevent it.
Oh man, it's true. Let's see, the back and forth between Giles and Wesley in front of Jabba was so good. Yes, I want a spin-off show of the adventures of Wesley and Giles. This.
Oh my God, they could do Watchers Academy.
They should.
I would watch the hell out of that.
But not with.
I agree.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
they can
You know,
both
it's different.
be professors. They can come back and teach. She said the scene where Buffy is fighting vamps and swings the sword so it cuts Giles's rope was awesome. That was good. Eliza did a phenomenal job with how she reacted to Alan's death. At first, the guilt was all over her face, but in true Faith fashion, she ends up shoving it all down as though nothing happened. That conversation between her and Buffy at the end was powerful. I agree. Her favorite quotes are when Buffy meets Wesley, is he evil? The last one was evil. When Giles is impressed by Wesley's knowledge, Wesley, I didn't get this job because of my looks, and Buffy's, I really, really believe that. And she says, though I found parts hard to buy into, this was a great episode because it sets up the best parts of future episodes. Wesley's introduction and presence in this ep made for some great comedic moments. Knowing Alex and Allison fell in love on the show is so sweet. Super excited for upcoming episodes. The final 3 of this season are among my favorites in the series. If you need a guest host for the prom, I am 100% available. Have a wonderful week/weekend. Grr, arg. Thank you, Becky.
Thanks, Becky. That was
so
awesome.
Fun. We have a surprise
And
for the prom episode also. A little bit.
It's James Marsters.
I feel like Michael Scott in that episode where he has to come up with something and tell everyone that he has a huge surprise and it's just ice cream sandwiches. So it's not like crazy. It's just a nice little fun surprise to the episode.
It's a very small surprise.
A small surprise.
We got an email from my friend Piotr, the Polish translator we turned to after Gingerbread.
So helpful.
And he says, thank you for the motivation to rewatch Bad Girls episode. My feedback is a little all over the place, so hold on to your hats. The corrupting influence of the powerful on their peers and their followers has been shown brilliantly in this one. What is the nature of the spell that the powerful hold over their minions or their peers? And how is it that nearly half of the country, including an entire political party, follows an incapacitated demon who can't even get up from his jacuzzi, even when it's clearly proven time and time again that working for him doesn't end well? The same goes for the mayor. Gee, Peter, who are you talking about? All right. Spoiler. Oh, this is a spoiler. I'm going to skip that, actually.
Oh, yeah, we definitely need to talk about that in spoiler section.
Buffy has briefly turned faith-like through non-magical influence. Still, in the end, it wasn't in Buffy's DNA to turn entirely to the dark side. She maintained her wits about her. I really enjoyed how the difference between irresponsible and reckless leadership was presented. Let me insert yet another Trump parallel to make it clear. Isn't Faith's want, take, have speech similar to when you're a star, you can do anything? I've always chuckled when the mayor checked become invincible off of his to-do list. This time it gave me chills. Is Trump invincible? You tell me.
Oh my gosh.
For any other politician, the lies, fraud, misconduct, and indictments would be a metaphorical live electrical wire in their political jacuzzi, but it didn't even tickle him so far. Here I must pause and marvel at how Balthazar's hand gestures also look just too familiar.
That's true.
That's true.
Oh my
Oh
gosh.
my gosh, they
And
did.
the
Oh my
whole,
God.
you know, presidential immunity issue coming before the
Oh my
Supreme
God.
Court.
All
This
right.
is too much.
Oh my God. All right. It's quite obvious that JW and the crew are left-leaning, but there is a lot of truth in this portrayal. The mayor almost seems like Ted 2.0, the family man / homicidal robot from season 2.
Yeah.
Cheerful khaki and sweater vest wearing family men who are into Sunday cartoons and mini pizzas, hiding something dark and sinister behind
Yes.
this superficial exterior, really are the worst. There's no way they don't roll down their window shades right after the Boy Scout photo op and open their cabinets full of dark magic supplies.
I love that.
So good.
I love you,
Yep.
Peter. Okay. Poor Wes. He's so out of his element. I'm sure all of us felt it whenever they were in a being
Being a new.
I'm sure all of us felt it whenever we were in a being a newbie situation. The more you're trying to prove your worth, the more it backfires. Props to Giles for not losing his cool and demonstrating his actual experience level. Very satisfying. Yes, it still slays, as a serious commentary and as great entertainment. The whole episode was filled with the funniest one-liners. One of my favorites was Willow's "Chemistry is a lot like witchcraft, only less neat."
That is a good one.
Fantastic. Piotr, I love that you have become a fan and have started writing into the podcast.
Yes, you have great
wonderful.
feedback.
And that
all of everyone's
is
feedback is
such
incredible.
an eerie parallel.
Yeah, I wouldn't have seen it,
No.
and now I can't unsee it ever.
Yes.
That's perfect.
Nice. Yeah.
Oh,
Well done. Please write back
Yes.
again.
Please.
yes, right in again. All right, that is the end of the main section of the podcast. Stay tuned for the Watcher's Diaries if you want to hear the spoilery discussion.
If you'd like to join the conversation, you can find all of our contact information at podcastica.com and in the show notes for each episode. Also at podcastica.com, you'll find links to our social media pages and all our other shows.
So many good shows on Podcastica. We always say this.
Many.
I am right now a little sad that The Ones Who Live is over, and we're not going to be hearing that on the Cast of Us anymore, but I am looking forward to them picking up the rewatch and getting back to Shane and Rick
Ugh.
and all of that
Excited
drama.
for
Such
that.
fun. I've been re-listening to a lot of the What Is From Cast podcast. I really enjoyed that show when it came out and have been rewatching it in the background at work and trying not to get too sucked in. So then I listen to the podcast once I'm done.
It's
And
awesome.
they really do. Right? Yeah. They just do such a fantastic job covering that show, and I cannot wait until the new season comes out and we get to hear them cover it. And if you like what we do, hit follow, give us a 5-star rating if you are so inclined, a review or a like. Be sure to follow and subscribe. Next time, we'll be covering Season 3, Episode 15, Consequences. Thanks, everyone, and...
Kara, remember the 3 key words for any Slayer. Preparation, preparation, preparation.
That's one word 3 times.
All right, that is the end of the non-spoiler section. If you want to avoid spoilers, you should stop listening now. We'll give you a few seconds while I say this to turn off whatever the thing is that you are listening on.
Yeah.
It's too bad we can't sneak a look at the Watcher Diaries. I'm sure it's full of fun facts to know and tell.
Yeah. That's too bad. That stuff is private.
Also, Giles keeps them in his office, in his personal files.
Most importantly, it would be wrong.
So, unfortunately, well, not really unfortunately, but Sam had to leave because she is celebrating her grandmother's 102nd birthday. So that took precedence over the spoiler section of the podcast. We wish them well. And in the meantime, Kara and I are going to talk about what's coming.
Dun, dun, dun.
Because there were so many things we wanted to be spoilery about while we were talking earlier. In the next episode, there's going to be the scene where everyone finds out that Xander slept with Faith, and Willow is really upset about it. And, you know, she actually says, I don't like Faith sharing my people. You know, she feels possessive of Xander and Buffy. And it's a really, like, a sad moment because Willow sort of goes off by herself in the bathroom to cry about it.
The hurt on her face when she hears it, it's just so well done and palpable by Allison Hannigan. Because you think about how many complex feelings must be coming up for her in that moment. And we can, you know, I'm sure we will talk about it in depth next time. But
yeah,
this episode just kind of really sets into motion the rest of the season and all of the issues that come up with Faith, and it's going to be kind of a reckoning with the Scoobies and Faith coming up. And I don't blame Willow, honestly, for being possessive and cautious about Faith. Not one bit. I will say one teeny little bit that drives me a little nuts every time I watch this episode is we see Willow getting into all of these Ivy League schools. Another is early acceptance, which pretty much means, you know, if you get into it, you're going. That's I'm assuming that's still how it was, or it's how it was in 1999, like it was in 2006. But that's one thing. But she gets into so many Ivies, and she ends up at UC Sunnydale, and she's got, you know, she and Willow have the FBI, and like they're being headhunted, and there's really no explanation as to why she turns down the Ivy League schools and goes to
she says
I don't buy
because
it.
she's already discovered what she wants to do with her life, and it's fight evil with witchcraft, and you know, where better to do that than the Hellmouth and at the side of the Slayer.
I know.
It's hard for me to believe because when I was applying to colleges, I was desperate to get out of my small town and leave behind all of the people I knew. And so if I had been in Willow's shoes and was getting, you know, woo pitched at me by all these fancy schools, I would not have been able to turn that down.
That's the thing. But maybe it's also my projection of how much I place academics on a pedestal, you know, and how important and focused I was, or how important they were and how focused I was on it. But it just, every time I hear her listing off all of these colleges, I'm like, well, that could have been very interesting. But then,
except then she wouldn't have been with Buffy.
No, I'm glad she didn't. It's just it's not as extreme as, you know, when they had Oz forget to go to summer school and
like
stay behind. It's like, all right,
not graduate. Yeah,
but it's just it's a teeny thing. But I would much rather see Willow, you know, ultimately stay and meet Tara and be around.
I can't imagine what it would have been like at 17 or 18 to have such a clear idea of my purpose in life.
Yeah.
You know, at that age, I knew I wanted to do something creative in the entertainment world, and I knew I wanted to get the F out of New Hampshire, but everything else was up for grabs.
Yeah.
And even at that point, I was still like, maybe I want a career in science. Like, I was all over the place. I needed college, and I needed a wide curriculum that was varied because I had so many different areas that I was interested in. But I guess if you really already know exactly what you want to do, then she's right. The Hellmouth is like, you know, the Harvard of fighting evil.
Yeah. Well, and there's no sense to go off to, you know, another Hellmouth like Cleveland or something when you have one right there.
Yeah. Right at home and in-state tuition. So that's
nice.
Nice.
True. That I'll buy. Like that, I'm like, all right, yes, sure.
Yeah.
Ugh.
The thing that makes it so unbelievable is like they've been in Sunnydale on the show for 3 years now, and we've never
Yeah.
seen any hint that you see Sunnydale exists until
It's just like,
at the end of
surprise.
this season. Yeah.
Ugh, that's funny.
And let's see, we talked about what was the other thing we wanted to talk about in spoilers?
Well, there was, oh, my brain.
I guess just generally that Faith is going to team up with the mayor.
Yeah.
And how that is related to all of the stuff we did talk about, which was like her trauma, her PTSD, her desperate need for a home. And the mayor, with his hokiness and his, cuteness, fills this fatherly role for her that she didn't even necessarily consciously know that she needed.
Yeah.
And accepted her dark side without trying to change her at all, which is something that she couldn't get from the Scoobies, right? They were all like, Faith has to be on the straight and narrow now because she killed a guy. And the mayor was like, you killed a guy? Awesome. Do you want to kill some more guys? Like, that'd be great. And so she finds this sort of false home with him where he doesn't want what's best for her. Really, he wants what she can do for him.
She is.
Although I do think he genuinely loves her by the
Oh
end.
yeah. But at this point, he's like, hell, it'd be great to have a Slayer on my side.
Yeah.
And
she's a spy
yeah,
too. It's awesome.
Like, what more could you want? And he's just, I don't know. It just is so well done when you think about Faith's background and what she's susceptible to, and the mayor plays up that father figure perfectly to her. He just draws her right in. And in this episode, she really is at a fork in the road. Quite, which direction do you go in? Whatever direction you go in, it's going to change everything. And the way that it plays out is, I think, one of the best story arcs on Buffy. It's just so well done. And oh, that was another thing. Is it, how do you say it? Is it Piotr? His feedback, one of the spoilery parts that we skipped over, he mentioned that Faith's influence on Buffy seemed like a prelude to the body swap episode, which I think is late season 4, maybe 16, 15, something. Except here, Buffy has briefly turned Faith-like through non-magical influence, and said in the end, it wasn't in Buffy's DNA to turn entirely to the dark side. And this incident is what leads up to so much in that episode and Faith's attitude, where she's, embodying Buffy and she's standing in front of the mirror practicing saying, like, that would be wrong. We can't do that. That would be wrong. Like, this is really where that dichotomy starts. And
where she starts to develop a hatred for Buffy that is based almost entirely on her not liking that Buffy is seeing her dark side. And calling her out on it. And in that body swap episode, she starts beating the crap out of her own body when Buffy is in her body and saying, you're disgusting, you're a murderer. And it's so clear that she's talking about herself.
So powerful.
And her own self-hatred. Oh, God, that episode is amazing.
It is. It's brilliant. Like, Faith's introduction into the Buffyverse was brilliant. Like, every storyline that comes from Faith being involved, I'm just, like, head over heels for. So this trajectory is excellent. Really, I think the entire show changes from here on out because of what they experience with Faith, and it changes for the better, in my opinion.
I think Buffy's character gets so much deeper after having gone through this. It's a little bit like Luke Skywalker going into that cave and fighting Darth Vader, and then Darth Vader has his own face. This is Buffy is fighting like the darkest side of herself. And she has to get to a point by the end of the season where she's even willing to kill off that part of herself.
Well, and she resists for so long. She is the one who holds out hope the longest that Faith can be redeemed and that they can somehow reach her and kind of pull her back in. And I think it's because, like you're saying, she sees what she could be in Faith. She sees some of herself in Faith and the direction it could have taken. So it's harder for her to just write her off completely. And like you mentioned, the depth that adds to her character is just, ugh, it's so valuable in the story.
And it gives us an opportunity to appreciate the way that Buffy's connections to the people in her life keep her grounded.
Mm-hmm.
And the love and compassion that she leads with, even when she's going up against darkness, she always leads with this love that she feels for humanity.
Mm-hmm.
It's quite beautiful.
And it'd be so easy for her to become jaded and lose sight of that. And there are even times like as I think lawyers in general deal with becoming a little jaded depending on the work environment they're in. And I still have to catch myself sometimes with how jaded and cynical I became after being in prosecution for almost a decade. And there are times rewatching the series where Buffy says something and I almost instinctively scoff. And I'm just like, that's not realistic, or that's so naive, and have to catch myself and be like, no, it is a good thing that Buffy is this positive and hopeful. Like, this is a big part of her character, and it's one of Buffy's most admirable traits. Admirable, not admiral. Very different words. But, she's so good. Like, she is moral, she is purely good and cares about humanity as a whole. And that is why, she has such a significant impact, not only in terms of the show, but in the Buffy universe with how things are done with Slayers eventually. And it's just, we see that here where she had a choice too in how to have handled this. And she settles into who she is and doing what is right and what is, just. And Faith goes the complete opposite direction. And it's just sad.
So that is the complete end of our show. Thank you guys, everybody in the audience, for listening. And until next time, I am Penny.
And I'm Kara. Keep slaying.